Hey, how you doing, everyone? My name is Michael, the chairman, and welcome to the Chairman of the Board podcast. My guest today is Phil BeLight, host of the Light Exchange podcast, which is you can find on his TikTok. And I really appreciate you coming on my podcast today, Phil. I found you on Instagram and TikTok, and I discovered I was neurodivergent myself. And you really just do a great job at saying the truth about what it's like being neurodivergent and kind of how we're all bullied a little bit in this world full of neurotypicals. And we need someone using their voice, saying the truth about what it's really like. So I appreciate everything you've been doing, and I'm grateful to have you on the podcast today.
Thanks, Michael. I appreciate it. It's been great connecting with you, and glad to finally connect to be able to do the podcast and definitely get into some of those topics. So yeah, looking forward to it. Thanks for having me.
Definitely, bro. So how would you define being neurodivergent in general?
So I think that there's, I am a content creator that got into content creation really without wanting to define a niche. Like I didn't get into it to become a neurodivergent content creator. But as I started creating content, some of the neurodivergent content was the content that resonated the most. And the more I thought about it, the more I thought about how much neurodivergence impacts my everyday life and just literally illuminates every part of my life to where it's like, oh, I can talk about everything that I want to talk about while doing it from this lens, because it's one of those lenses, to your point you made earlier. A lot of us don't have the type of vocal advocacy that I'm attempting to do. So I think there's two different types of definition to kind of answer your question. There's for sure the scientific, clinical, neurodivergent testing for autism, testing for ADHD, testing for all of the things that fall under the neurodivergent umbrella. And for me, I am diagnosed both ADHD in 2013 and autism in 2015. 2025. So more recently, but I am also creating content to more help people understand the symptoms and the things that go into the neurodivergent umbrella. And what I'm recognizing is that more people resonate with symptoms and things than I think would possibly pass the, clinical definition of it. So part of my journey thus far in being a creator has been really trying to define, to your point, neurodivergence, right? Because I don't want to say I'm only talking to people who have a clinical definition, who have been tested and have their diagnosis. I'm talking to everyone who feels this way. And it is my personal belief that most of us feel this way. Like I posted content saying that I believe that neurotypical is more of a it's more of a system outcome than it is a complete brain wiring, which makes more people susceptible to being neurotypical. So I think that's where the kind of lines between the scientific definition and kind of the purpose of my content kind of mix in the middle, because I'm not speaking from a clinical, I'm not a psychiatrist or anyone who would diagnose any neurodivergent traits. But at the same time, my definition is very much more focused on the social traits and things that really resonate with all of us and how those impact us on kind of a day-to-day basis.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely a spectrum. And I think you do a good job about, commenting on what it just feels like in general socially and how we're all kind of bullied a little bit in the system that's been made for neurotypicals. Mm-hmm. And you do talk about how I definitely feel this way too, that people who are on neurodivergent, it's a hard word to say, isn't it, sometimes?
Yeah.
Neurodivergent.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like the next evolutionary phase that is definitely needed right now in order to fix this catastrophe, this book of Revelations world that we're in. And I think now is our time to rise up, because it kind of has to be. Otherwise, it's over completely, right?
I couldn't agree with you more. I think that part of my premise or my manifesto, if you want to call it, of what I believe of neurodivergence is the fact that neurodivergent people have been mentally kind of oppressed to um to to figure out how to operate in this neurotypical world. And even when I say neurotypical, right, like we can define in that, and I mean more the traits and things that are pushed on really everybody to create productivity, to create profit, to create systems that allow for this system that we have created that is rooted in capitalism to exist. And so
Mm.
I think that, to the point you were making, I feel like neurodivergents are naturally wired for um, just being extra sensitive to injustices and unfairness. And we are starting to see the world become more and more unjust and more unfair. And it, to me, looking at it from, a 10,000 foot view, it's not something that's different per se. The world is still operating the way that it always has. It's just we're getting to that end game of capitalism, kind of where, you play the game of Monopoly, like we ever play Monopoly. End of the game, someone has all the money and all the assets, and it's no fun anymore, right? And I'm like,
Yeah.
we're at that point, and I feel like neurodivergents are the ones who are like, hey, the game we're playing isn't fun anymore, and like certain people have all of the hotels and we're just rolling the dice trying to get around without going to jail and getting taxed and like having enough
Uh-huh.
money to make it around. And that's real life right now. And I feel like neurodivergents are specifically attuned to this moment in time because of the necessity of sensitivity to like, hey, this isn't fair. Like, you know what I mean? Like, however you want to rationalize the wealth
Mhm.
inequality and all of the things going on in the world, at the end of the day, it's not fair. Like, you know what I mean? Like, no one can have
You're speaking my
a
language.
rational discussion to say that
Yeah.
it's fair, right? It's like, oh, my great granddad was, the owner of such and such railroad, so now I get to be a billionaire. That's not fair to me,
Mhm.
right? And it's one of those lenses that I think neurodivergents naturally raise our hands and say, hey, that's not fair, or I don't think we should play the game this way, or I don't think that, like, 100 people operating 80% of the world's wealth is like a game that I want to keep playing.
Well, yeah, we were born into a game none of us consented to, and they rewrote the rules like later, again,
Yeah.
over and over again, to make the game worse and worse and worse. And I don't know if you saw my video on this, and I wrote a whole Substack article called "If the Rules Aren't Fair, Break Them." Literally all about how this is one giant monopoly game, and we're at the very end of it. And
Yeah.
if the rules aren't fair, we have to break them right
We
now.
have to break them.
Yeah.
Like, and it's one of those things that I am, I think that my purpose or mission or feeling of mission has evolved from, oh, I just want to be a truth teller and telling things, to like really, and we haven't really discussed this, but my background is in finance. I started my career in investment banking in New York, and then moved to corporate finance, and most recently tech finance with one of the FANG companies, working in finance. And it really was just a super up close, impersonal view of like, oh, this can't work. Like, you know what I mean? At the end of the day, this
Oh, you
system
mean an
that
economy
exists,
based off of nothing, debt,
it
literally
doesn't work,
nothing?
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like you realize and you see the inside, to the point where, I was working at Goldman when the '08 crisis happened, and I saw, I'm not gonna say anything that goes against the NDA, but I saw things that were like, oh, this is not very different than a casino and gambling. We're making up products we're using capital to get more capital, and we're just making up the rules as we go. And then when we lose, when we fuck up, oh, excuse me, I'm sorry. Do you curse?
Dude, I'm a comedian and I cuss
Oh,
like
okay.
crazy. Yeah.
But when you fuck up on something, then we just get to print and make more money, and it was like, it's a concept that once you really understand it, you're just like, so there's a certain group that like controls all the money. They make up all the rules about the money. And then when you start figuring out how to get the money, they can unilaterally change the rules about the money. Like, this isn't fair. And to your point, like, we were born into this thing that I didn't sign up for this. I didn't say I wanted to play this game. And I don't like the game that we were born into. And it's like, my mission is to get everyone to remember that we are playing a game that we all agree to. At the end of the day, every part of our reality, our community, our laws, our beliefs, our norms, our religions, everything is predicated on our collective belief in this is the way to do it. And once we truly understand that, then we can get to the point where we truly understand, oh, we have the power to change the game immediately. And I tell people all the time, like, COVID showed us very specifically how quickly we can shift our economy on the, at a dime when necessary. So anyone saying, oh, the system is too big to change and you can't, COVID showed us that if we need to, we can. So my thing is, like, I want to get the collective United States of America, starting here, to really just up in the game that we're playing, because this is getting off into a tangential conversation of kind of, again, my manifesto, but I believe we are living in the period of time right now that will set the wealth inequality for millennia. I think right now, the ownership gaps that we have, where technology, robotics, AI are owned by a collective few, if the world and society as a whole doesn't pull back some of that power and some of that wealth, we will have this gap for millennia, simply because the ruling class will no longer need us to control and keep that power. They'll have the robotics, they'll have the AI. We're still in that period where they still need us to make the transition before it can become theirs. And I'm like, I want everyone to remember we're playing the game. I want everyone to remember that whatever technology and things exist, we all collectively own it. We all collectively played a part in creating it. And Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos and all those people did not unilaterally create these technologies and should not unilaterally own these technologies.
So yeah, we're at that convergence point of either, going to Terminator or dystopian nightmare or Solarpunk, right? You've seen the Solarpunk.
We are literally at the fork in the road.
Yeah, yeah. And it's definitely a time for choosing. And I think, going back to what we were talking about before, that neurodivergence had that sense of justice. I don't know about you, but my experience was, I thought I was the only fucking one, because anyone around me, they just don't have it. I got made fun of for saying the truth all the time. I'm sure you're like this too. Like, I'm truthful to a fault, and it would hurt me. Like, genuinely, it hurts me and deeply bothers me if I have to lie. I just don't do it. And I'll keep, there's a difference between, like, hey, this is something private just for me, and willingly, actively deceiving people. And I just don't do that. And I think that I see more and more people like you and like me speaking up now all throughout the internet and stuff, because it is so bad. And usually we feel safer now because I don't know about you, but like me, if I saw there was an injustice in the class and no one else was, like, in school, and no one else was doing something, I was compelled to speak up no matter what, even if I got hurt. You saying? Right.
And it's one of those things that I think, again, it's why I feel like neurodivergents are uniquely equipped for this point in time, because I also believe that the work that I do and the work that other people do during this period in time, we will not see the fruits of this labor. I don't think that we are going, I don't think in my lifetime I'm going to see the pivot to the type of world that I want to see. But I do recognize that I'm a part of starting that and getting that going. But it's one of those, like, I can't see the things happening and not do something, even though I know that it's going to take multiple generations to make the shift, because it really is. I tell people, I'm like, changing the world isn't hard. Changing people's minds is. Like, people have to understand that, like, at the end of the day, the collective reality that we all exist in and that we all abide by, the laws, the rules, and everything, are just agreed upon customs and traditions and things. And, like, whether it's based on historical text or based on a law that was created last year, it's just someone's decision on what it should be or how we should do it. And we can always change that. And we always should take our collective power to change that when we need to.
And we're seeing the people who run the world right now. They're the worst among us, obviously. I was going to ask you this shit later, but like, they are proven the worst among us. Mm-hmm. Fuck them. They have no right to rule over us. And I think we're at that that is a word, inflection point or convergence point. Like, where I think we are on, we're at that point now of the shift. I'm a little more optimistic than you, where I think we are going to see, I think it has to be a sharp change. And I think it's a snapping point. I think we're at that like quantum leap point where we're going to be in a new reality here soon. Mm-hmm. I think there are I'm very spiritual. I've died a bunch and come back to life and shit. And I saw you talking about being spiritual. I think there are spiritual forces helping us out here. And we are at like, I'm sure you've heard like Age of Aquarius, the Great Awakening, Book of Revelations, Hopi Prophecy, all that shit. I think it has to get very better very soon or very worse. But I think it's going to be very better because I think we're here for this specifically to take over and be the new leaders of what's going on here. I think we both feel that, I think, right?
I really, really hope that you're right because, I fully have a thought and belief that time is not linear. Time is, construct in that way. And so even when I say not going to happen fast, I'm almost talking in the history of mankind, right? Like, because when you really think about it, all of the time we've been here, 100 years, it's not a long time. Like, you know what I mean? But I get what you're saying, and I really hope and think that there are parts of you that can be right. One of the things that I'm really passionate about and articulating to people is that I'm not married or like committed to any belief. Right. Mm-hmm. Like my beliefs are always open to new information, new interpretations. And I have a very strong understanding of, hey, even though this may be what I believe, like I don't know that for fact or to be true or accurate. I have just had a feeling of the work that is necessary to make this shift. I do think, to the point again, I think we're saying fast, quick, and we're like time is relative, right? So time, a minute versus 100 years is relative to like what is quick or what is fast, right? And so I'm saying it in a human evolution way, it's going to be fast because the window is short. And I do think, to your point, we have a lot of, I think the universe works in ways that we just truly don't even have the ability to truly understand. And because of that, there are powers and things activating that are creating balance in the universe that are going to necessitate the type of future that I think you and I are discussing. But I also think it's why you're seeing more people, even during this wake up period, it also feels like more people are like, oh, maybe I'm neurodivergent. But I think, it's a different conversation. But there's a part of me that also goes back to kind of what you were alluding to in the beginning of there's an evolutionary aspect to some of the things that are happening that I think, again, I'm not trying to argue against psychiatrists or psychology or science or any of those things. It's just, my belief of the world, the way that I see it with the lens that I have. Neurodivergents have such a, like, almost like the factory based model of like your baseline is made to upend this system. So if I have a belief like, oh, this system, I already see it ending, the quantum shift is literally happening. Like I feel like we're kind of towards the end of the shift and then the work kind of starts. But again, those are all semantics, timeline, whatever. But I do think that we play such an important part, and it's why I've started creating the content, because a big part of me is like, I need other people to feel like what it is that you said, where it's like, oh, I'm not the only one. Because for so much of my life, I've been like, why am I the only one who can't get this or can't do this or who doesn't feel comfortable in this setting or whatever else? And my favorite piece of feedback to get on any content is I feel seen, or I feel so heard, or, because it's like, that's my purpose. Like, that is why I'm doing this. I'm not a person who just puts myself out there just for the sake of putting it out there. But it's like I felt like I had such a specific lens to articulate these things because, and I'm also mad. Like, you know, like I don't shy away from the fact, like, I don't like that the world normalizes this robotic way of being that we call neurotypical and then ostracizes people who don't fold into that mold into a way to make us feel othered or feel wronged or feel disordered or feel whatever. You know, even when I say ADHD, I know the word disorder is the last D, right? But like it's one of those where I use the term because I know that everyone will understand what it is I'm talking about, but I don't think ADHD is a disorder. It like by any norm, and I've said that it is a disordered in a disordered world. It's like that, you know, famous quote of like what is it? To be sane in an insane world is to be insane. And it's like that's how I feel about
Right. It's not good to be adjusted to a like insane society.
Maladaptive world.
Yeah. Yeah.
Literally.
And yeah, it's just we always had to dim our light and our personalities to fit in. And you said one really good thing that I've experienced as well, where like you'll say something that you know is profound or like a cool insight or something, and someone will just make you be like, "What? Like what?" And then you're like, "Oh, never mind," or you know, like
you start questioning yourself.
Yeah, you start questioning yourself, and you kind of like take it back almost and start dimming yourself. I fucking always hated doing that. I always hated having to play dumb or take back. I don't even know how to say it. Just like, yeah, they make you feel othered because you have knowledge that they don't. And you feel like a stupid one. I just always hated that.
I feel like it's you know, I think so many of the traits and things that exist in the world are rooted in insecurity. And I don't say insecurity in a way of, you know, people like being like problem, like it's a problem for the person. It's a societal problem to me. Like there is, I believe that capitalism, consumerism, individualism, all of the things that we just elevate to the highest proportion, specifically in the United States, breed insecurity. They breed competition. They breed jealousy and envy and all of these things that we all know are negative traits. But it's like the system that we are all agreeing to operate in necessitates it. You know, like it you cannot be you can't be a team player in capitalism. Like it doesn't work. Like, you know what I mean? Like
and it's every aspect of our society, right? Like
and it's
whether it's football, sports, movies, Democrats, Republicans, it's always about division. I fucking hate it. And it's always, you mentioned cooperation and you're a psychopath. You know, like you don't even bring it up.
I made that topic to someone and I was like, you know, I find it ironic sometimes that we will, again, ostracize people who are billionaires and, you know, 9-figure millionaires. And when we find out they've done something bad, something that is, you know, sociopathic, like whatever type of thing. And I'm like, why are you so surprised? Right. Like, you know, I recently the P. Diddy trial and stuff. And I said to people, I was like, I don't know why we feel so surprised. Do you know how psychopathic you have to be to elevate yourself from where he started to becoming almost a billionaire in this industry and in this way? Like the things that you have to do and the person you have to be necessitates a lot of these core features and personality traits. And then we are, oh my God, I can't believe he's such a monster. It's like, you gotta be a monster to elevate and to operate, because everyone is a fucking monster in this system, you know? And it's like, I look, it's so black and white to me. And I recognize how other people don't see it the same as me after a lot of banging my head against the wall. Like, I don't understand why you don't see this thing the same way, but it's one of those, like, I think that all of us have, like, I think our brains are similar to like computer programs, and we all have some little source code that can be implanted almost like Inception, where it'll upend all of those crazy beliefs that you have. And it's like, I think if I can get people to understand hey, we're all playing a made up game, then you can start to see the game more clearly of like, why are we doing it this way when we can just do it that way? And it makes that easy. And then when you show people that like, hey, just, I know we're all bought into capitalism and they tell you to do this and buy this and be this, but the end game of that is being a sociopathic, narcissistic, selfish person who doesn't care about people and cares about profits. That's the end game of this, and getting people to see that, to, because the point you made earlier, and it's one that I think is really nuanced and interesting, is that everybody up top are bad leaders and stuff. If I'm being honest, I have a belief that most people in those same positions would operate the same way. It's just most people don't have the access or the capital to operate in that way. But it is because, again, the system that we have
most
in place,
neurotypical is probably right, because like neurodivergence, I just see it's a common thing that we have that almost like angelic justice where we just can't go against it.
I think that there's,
because I know me, I'm compelled. It's some other form. Like I'm compelled to do the right thing.
I'm saying it more from like, I think that most people, neurodivergent and neurotypical, going through the elevation process that gets you to 9 you're like,
it's systemically built like that, you're saying.
It's almost like the politician who starts off and wants to do everything for the community and believes in like is really there for the right reasons, but then you get into the system and you realize like, oh, I can't do it that way, and I gotta give here, I gotta give there, and then before you know it, you're unrecognizable because you've made so many trade-offs. I feel the same way about like capitalism. It's like, like Elon Musk is autistic and probably 88. He is neurodivergent, but like he has taken on.
That is a good point. That is a good
system,
point.
Like he has taken on so many of those traits of the system that it's why I see neurotypical as almost like bad software in our minds that makes whoever operate almost this way. And it's again why I separate kind of that scientific versus like cultural aspect, because I do think there's some crossover there. I do think some people like yourself and myself may be so, further along that spectrum to where whatever the system is trying to push on us, we just can't. Like I literally can't, and it's like, even if the last company that I worked for, the reason I ended up having to leave was because they asked me to sign off on something I didn't agree with and I didn't believe in. And I was like, I don't feel like this is okay. Right. Like I'm like, at the end of the day, I just morally don't feel like this is okay. I know these people. I've worked with these people. I'm not signing off on this. Someone else can sign off on it, even though it's supposed to fall under my purview. I'm saying that I think that most people would, okay, let me just sign because I don't want to lose my job. Neurotypical or neurodivergent, because at the end of the day, the pressures of the world are such that you really have to be pretty far on the end of the spectrum to just be like, I don't care what you say to me. Like I could show, like I'm planning to write a book eventually and show the emails of like me just saying like, I hear you. I understand. I know that this is what we're supposed to do for profitability, for the shareholders, for the quarter, for all of the things. I'm just telling you that I'm not going to do it because I don't think that we should be saying, hey, let's save this amount of money and sacrifice people over profit. That is where my line, kind of got drawn. And it's just like, I knew there would be consequences. I knew that there would be but I was incapable of doing it. And it was like, I literally went, my therapist, I'm just like, I know all I got to do is sign on the paper. No one would ever even know that I signed the paper. It wouldn't even be a thing. Like, I was just like, I can't do it. And I ended up taking a leave of absence because I'm just like, hey, this is fucking me up so much. And I know it's going to impact my career, but I'm telling you that like, if you put the paper in front of me and give me a pen, I can't,
I know.
It's just the wiring of I don't care. It doesn't. My mother could ask me to do it, and I would say no.
Mm-hmm. I'm the same way, bro. I'm the same way. And yeah, it feels like we're living in the upside down world where so many people are compelling you to do the wrong thing all the time, who are conforming to a system that feeds off of survival and fear and injustice. Like my whole, I don't know if you watched it, my whole last podcast was about, we named it, it was one of his phrases, my guest, Aaron, uncomfortable or comfortable slavery versus uncomfortable freedom.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what people are just living right now. It's just
Yeah.
comfortable slavery, but it is slavery.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just a new form.
It's one of those that, again, it took me moving through it and really just seeing it and getting to a point of income where I was like, this can't be it, and like seeing what the rest of the road looked like and saying, oh, this can't be it. Like, this isn't what, like, no, this, and it is such an insidious form of slavery because, again, it's so layered. Like, I could have this conversation for literally hours. And I think, I tell people all the time, it's like the idea of interest, right? The idea of interest on money is a form of slavery. However you want to look at it, it's made up money that I am charging you on another made up thing that isn't predicated on the gold standard or anything tangible. It's just a made up thing saying, hey, the longer you hold my made up thing, the more of the made up thing you have to give me. And in the end, the made up thing that I'm adding on top of the money, the made up thing, is creating more inflation and creating your dollar is going like, and it's such an insidious programming system in a way where you're just like, oh yeah, this system inevitably will make everyone at the top get richer and everyone at the bottom get poorer. And the wealth inequality, there
And that's how
is
it's
no
intended.
other end
It's
results.
intended to
Like,
be
it's
that
the
way.
intended results, right? And
Yeah.
it's like I wish that other people could have the lens that we have of just like, hey, there's no way to play this game where at the end a few people own everything. Like, we can press reset right now, and it may not be Bezos and Musk and all those people who own it, but it's still going to be very few people that own everything because the system that we have like, it's predicated on extraction from one group to another, wealth extraction from one group to another, and having capital to create more capital. And it's like,
And
there is
people
no
just
way
say
to
that's
catch up.
like human nature and that capitalism is the
No,
best way to do it.
no,
But that really isn't human nature. That's not how
no,
we used to be. And yeah, in my last episode, we talked about too, like we're supposed to live in communities and take care of each other and uplift everyone. And I write articles about this, like, capitalism is bad because it's like feeding off of survival, right? And fear and forcing you to do things you don't want to do, and it's a form of slavery. Communism is also bad because you have to suppress the individual to uplift the whole thing, right? And then bad people in power are doing the suppressing. But what we need to do is uplift every individual to be their highest, best self, and that raises the collective. So we need some form of system. I don't even like to say system. I'm like Neo in the Matrix, and he's like fighting against the system. I don't like systems, but some sort of operational, I'd say harmony. I have a quote that I wrote that's like, there can be no prolonged peace without harmony. We have to have harmony, otherwise no amount of peace will ever be sustained. And that will require such a huge cultural shift, not just systemic, but our culture has been poisoned through all this programming for not just decades, but centuries. It's gotten worse in the last decades, but centuries of so much programming and division it's permeated every aspect of our life to the point where it's like, it's definitely spiritual too. I was going to ask you about this later, your view on reality, but there's definitely some other evil forces doing this too. I was going to ask you about, like, do you think we're in some sort of matrix or prison planet?
Such a complex question, right?
I don't know.
Because the truth is, we could be and we could not be, but the result is kind of the same. Like, I have come to the understanding that at the end of the day, we all individually and collectively create the reality that we're living in, from a quantum physics perspective, from a spiritual perspective, from a everything that I know and understand and feel perspective. Again, what I said earlier, I'm not married to any of my beliefs. These are just the beliefs that I currently hold based on everything that I have. And it is really hard to imagine that we are not living in some form of a uh like I feel like when I say Matrix, like people automatically, and again, The Matrix is literally my favorite movie. The first time I saw it in 1999, it imprinted on me in a way that I could go hours into describing, and like the ways that it is unpackaged in my life as an understanding and framework for the world. But it's not, I think most people look at the Matrix in the way the movie is, where it's like, oh, we actually have physical bodies somewhere that are like plugged into this thing, and it really is a computer system. I'm like, I don't think it's that. It is. I think I don't believe in local consciousness. I believe that like our brains are conduits that are radio antennas that receive signals, and that is why people sometimes signals get mixed up, bipolar, and all of the different things. We can get into it a different, but I think because of that framework, it is hard for me not to see like the idea that Earth, or the reality that exists in what we call Earth, is not some sort of simulation or prison system. Because at the end of the day, I recognize how hard it was for me to wake up out of this system, to like really see it, kind of to your point of like Neo in the Matrix, in that scene where he's like looking around and you can like see all the code. I'm like, I can literally look at any aspect of society and tell you why capitalism is at the root of it, and like
Mhm.
why the system that exists is bad for us, and or why the reason that this thing is done or created or produced or packaged or whatever this way is rooted in profit and not in our collective upliftment, and that is what I think is now, that is what I believe is really the truth of seeing behind the Matrix, is like not necessarily seeing this computer programming and like, oh, I can fly and change the world. It is, oh, it's all a made up game. And at the end of the day, once you realize it's a made up game, and you realize that your consciousness can actually control the made up game based on your beliefs and what you actually think is going to happen, like the game changes. And it's the same idea of the Matrix. Is like once Neo woke up and realized, like, oh, I don't have to abide by these rules. Like when I go into the system, there's a certain number of rules that exist, and I have to, like I can't go around pew pewing people all over everywhere without consequences. But at the end of the day, I see that I can operate within the system without operating within the system and still get the things that I want and need. I think when we get I think one of the things that was missing from the Matrix is like the idea of a collective awakening where everybody got woke up type of thing. And to your point you were making earlier, I think we're getting realistically to that period where there are some of us who have already very much woken up to this idea and understanding of, oh, it's all made up. We just need to play a different game, and to get everyone to rally behind starting a new game,
And
essentially.
imagine how powerful we are together,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like a
Yeah.
real awakened beings. You think one, like Neo, the one is like powerful with or two with Trinity. Like
Yeah.
all of us awakening, that's really powerful. And I see us like finding each other. Like I'm
Yeah.
doing more and more podcasts because I've just been like called to do it. I've been praying God or whatever force, like, hey, you're
I
you're
get it.
doing this. You died a bunch. I kind of like you're doing this, Michael. You're fine. I'm like,
Yep.
okay, fine. And I see now. I see how it's working out. The synchronicities, finding people like you and all my other guests, and I think that like they say in quantum physics, like attracts like, and I just see
Likewise.
more of that happening right now. That's why I'm having you on. My mission is like protect the innocent and amplify the good. So I try to do that to the
I
best of
love
my
that.
ability, and I just see that you're doing that, and yeah, together I
Look,
think we're capable of anything.
very similar to you. Like I pushed back on talking and doing any of the social media stuff because it was never really my, like it just wasn't my thing. But similar to you, I've had some different topic, but plant medicine ceremony experiences that have completely given me a full understanding of self, and past self and like the mission and like, oh, okay, on this iteration, this is literally what I'm here to do. Like, you are uniquely designed in this position. All of these experiences that you have had, you signed up for so that you could serve this specific purpose. And it's like, okay, like you're not so you're I don't know that you're supposed to want to do it, but you are supposed to feel called, led to do it, and to be able to do it in a way that I when I left finance, one of the quotes that I read that when I was trying to figure out what I really truly wanted to do was like, find the thing that you can do better than everyone else and do it easier than everyone else. And it's like,
Mhm.
oh, I can talk about these types of topics all day. And I
Yeah.
mean like all day. Like the kind of content I make on neurodivergence and things on TikTok, I could make 50 of those per day because it's a core belief, and it's also like so urgent to the point
Hmm.
we were making earlier, because like the system is changing, the quantum shift is happening, we do see the old worlds collapsing, we see the systems, the beliefs, the religion, the government, the all of the things that people used to anchor their identities to being completely evaporated. We're going to see the job market completely restructured over the next 4 years, and it's going to upend people's identity of self. And I also think that's another reason why a lot of my content is resonating with people, because people are looking for identity. Like people, like, because most people used to tie their identity to their job, or tie their identity to their church, or tie their identity to their political beliefs, which I think is actually a more recent, since Citizens United 2008 time kind of thing, where people are more like, I'm a Republican, I'm a Democrat. Before it was kind of like you were whatever you were, but we didn't talk politics at the dinner table, kind of thing. But I think more people are, to your point, just waking up to it. And as more people wake up, it gives me hope and optimism of how quickly and easily we can change the world. Because I think, I've had literal dreams of having Donald Trump responding to me on his whatever it's called, not Twitter, whatever, because I'm speaking truth to power. But I'm saying that not because it'll be
You're such
me,
a loser, Phil.
but
You're such a
right, no,
loser.
but it's one of those, like, as you grow, right, and as you create more podcasts and more conversations, you realize like, oh, you're really, like, Michael is one episode away from saying the viral thing that gets the attention
Mhm.
of this person in power that now knows Michael, and Michael is now the visual for anti whatever that thing is. And that's really how I feel like it happens. It's like I tell
Mhm.
people all the time, like David and Goliath, right? You think of that analogy, whether you call it a truthful Bible thing, an analogy, an allegory, whatever. David cannot become David without Goliath. Like, he needs
Mhm.
the enemy, he needs the thing to prove himself, to be elevated to this level of whatever it is. And I think that's the world that neurodivergents are existing in right now. We are being called to fight against these systems and these things in ways that don't require anything from us but being your authentic self. Like, that's the
I
part,
agree.
like when I say Phil BeLight, that was a download, spiritual download of like, Phil, you don't have to prophesy, you don't have to missionary, you don't have to go convert people to you just need to be. And as long as you are
Mhm.
being and speaking truth and being authentic and 100% embodying what it is that is inside of you to embody for this period of life, for this iteration of life, for this cycle of life, as long as you're doing that, like, you're going to change everyone that you need to change. And it's one of those like things that I think will literally change the world if everyone could start existing as their authentic self. Because I think your authentic self has a unique code in this world that is supposed to give a perspective that a lot, like, I think when you think of like what is it called, a bell curve, right? You're like, you have the two ends of the bell curve. I think what we have right now is we have people all over the bell curve acting like other parts of the bell curve. So the average is not where it's supposed to be, because we have so many people being inauthentic and trying to fit in. And so it's moving the bell curve one way or the other. Whereas I believe that the more I get people to understand, like, your authentic self is not just an expression of you, it is necessary for our whole of humanity to have the accurate bell curve to get to where we need to go in the future. That is a passionate part of me, because I'm like, you don't have to you don't have to create, you don't have to do anything but be. And if you are being authentic and like you following, like, oh, I didn't want to do a podcast, but the lane that I want to do my podcast in, I feel so drawn and led to do. And following that, to me, is like the highest form of intelligence. And I say that to people all the time. I'm like, we think intelligence is IQ. Intelligence is being able to listen to that internal voice saying, do this thing that may not make sense to everyone else, but you see exactly how it can be done and exactly how it plays a part and exactly who it impacts and uplifts and everything else. And you move within that and do that thing. That, to me, is God level intelligence that cannot be measured by IQ, EQ, or any other test that we have. But it is the highest form of intelligence that I think we as humans can aspire to.
Definitely that leap of faith into your intuition of following your calling is, I believe as well, way higher than IQ. And yeah, being your authentic self and identity is going to be, I think, the most important thing, right, not even in the future, like right now, because I talk to people about this and I get challenged on it, about, what are you going to do without a job? And they're like, oh, I'll just deal with it when it happens. I'm like, well, it's kind of happening now. It's going to be like, like next year
week,
or even sooner. Yeah. Like, and they just don't get it. I don't understand how they don't, they say they don't want to think about it. I'm like, you're going to have to think about it.
I think it's one of those things that, like, that's such a nuanced thing too, right? Because there's always the idea and understanding that I have of being present and being in the moment and dealing what is urgent and necessary right now, right? Because I think part of the let's call it the matrix, part of the deception of the matrix is to always make you fear what is to come and to fear what's going to happen tomorrow when you're not prepared. And that is, but it's also a very, fragile line to make, because to your point, there is a reality of, I think this is a place where neurodivergents are both thrive, and like, it's a known thrive is the pattern recognition of, like, hey, I see this place, I see all these jobs going away in this sector after this. I can extrapolate that forward and recognize, like, oh, I'm not gonna that's part of what got me out of finance. Was I'm like, hey, my entry level analysts who report to my direct reports, like, they're obsolete. Like, we still have them, but like, the AI tools and stuff that we have can do the financial analysis that they do better than them and faster than them already. And so I'm just like, how long before it can do the things that I do that are definitely more unique and more, like, disparate, pulling from different things, but like, it's only a matter of time, because it's IQ, that is processing speed, that's computer. And even if I can always do it better, it's going to be able to do it so much faster and cheaper that the corporations will take faster and cheaper over that slight bit of better or artistic or whatever. And it's like, I look at that and I say, I think most people aren't, it's a whole different topic, but I think the mental health period that we're in is also causing problems for a lot of people. And this is a conversation I haven't really started talking about yet, but one that I plan to start creating content and saying how I truly believe the mental health industry has become, again, a part of the capitalistic system that keeps us healing instead of evolving or changing and or becoming something new. It keeps us in this idea that we
focusing on the problem over and over and over again.
Focusing on the problem over and over, instead of being present and, hey, this is the new reality that I exist in. This really awful thing happened and I don't like it, and I will have to process what happened, but I also need to deal with the reality of what's happening right now without the therapy of going back and reliving the trauma. And like,
I just realized what real therapy would be. Instead of talking about the problem over and over again, it's someone expressing love to you, being fully present with you, and I think that's what would heal people very quickly, actually, instead of being like, oh, that happened. Okay, that happened. Oh, that's fucking terrible. Okay.
Yeah.
How about empathy? Like, it's rare, but
But I feel like it goes back to, again, me saying like the type of content that I'm making, right? Like I feel like it is a form of expressed empathy, because what I'm saying to people is like, hey, I've experienced these things, and like I'm vocalizing it, and then someone else is like, oh, I've experienced that too, and it sucked. And there's
Mhm.
someone else who experienced that, and it sucked. And there's a real healing quality of, I'm not telling you, how, I'm not giving you, hey, what I think you should do, whether you should get on a prescription or you should be all natural or you should meditate. I'm not giving you any of those things. I'm just giving you relational relativity to a
Connection,
problem that
right?
we all have, and that
Yeah.
heals people, because
Yeah.
sometimes all you need to know is, oh, I'm not the only one, and there's a solution to the thing. Other people have experienced this, and oh, I wonder what they did. Now let me go look at what they did, because to me that is the most beautiful thing about people seeing my content and even feeling like, oh, am I neurodivergent? Do I have something? Because to me, I'm like, it's not about, I don't care if you go get a diagnosis or you don't. Like, I couldn't care less if you have that piece of paper. What I care about is if you experience symptoms and things like this, that you create the systems and the procedures and the things that you need to be able to operate efficiently, knowing that the world is not designed for you. Because
Hmm.
that's the point. Like, the point isn't, I see some content of people saying, oh, neurodivergent people just always complain. They want people to accommodate, and oh, I can't pay attention because I'm neurodivergent. I'm not in that camp. I'm neurodivergent. It's hard for me to pay attention. So let me do this thing that will help me pay attention. Or let me not put myself in a position where I have to pay attention for long periods of time. I'm not going to sign up for the 3 hour lecture. Instead, I'm going to sign up for the 1 hour lecture 3 times a week. Like,
Hmm.
it's really those kind of things that I think make the difference in uh, operating with some of these, what I call gifts. But it's almost like, you got to learn how to drive a stick shift if you want to drive a Porsche. Well, not literally, because they have automatic, but like the idea of it is like, hey, it's not easy, it's not normal, it's not automatic like neurotypical is. But if you learn how to shift those gears and do it at the right time and understand how, you have a supercar compared to everyone else.
Hmm. And then school really tricks you out of that. So, and,
Oh
and with
yeah.
the labeling and like, yeah, it's a
Oh yeah.
disorder, you're the problem and all that shit.
Absolutely. And it's,
Yeah.
again, that's part of the purpose of the content. Is like, my biggest messaging this year for neurodivergence will be, you are not the problem, that the system is the problem. And while we have to learn to operate within the system, our goal should be to change the system, because I, truly don't believe that anyone is born neurotypical. I think that some people are more susceptible to it based on brain wiring and chemistry, etc. But I think at the end of the day, the neuron pruning that happens is a result of society, to your point, especially in school, where we start to close children's minds off to all those things. Even when we ask a 3 or 4 year old, what do you want to be? Oh, I want to be a lawyer.
Mm.
Okay, to be a lawyer, you got to do this, this, this. And then they start doing just those things because you've put in their mind they want to be a lawyer, and this is what a lawyer has to do. And now they're closed off to all the infinite possibilities of what they could have been. And I think that's where the neuron pruning type of thing happens. Again, don't
Hmm.
have a background in any of the science of any of the things. That is just my conjectured belief of like, I'm sure that the neuron pruning happens naturally as we learn skills, and like we don't need this or that or whatever else. But I think it happens at the rate that it happens because of the structure and society that we've created.
Well, it puts your mind in a literal box, right? A cell.
Yes,
And even
literally.
schools, I'm sure you know, like they're designed like fucking prisons. Literally,
Mhm.
same with the bell schedule, all that designed by J.D.
Colors,
Rockefeller
raise your
to make
hand.
obedient workers. I mean,
1000%. And we get that literal like indoctrination that starts so young. And but again, that's kind of my point, is that this is, I say it all the time, it's like, it's not an accident. It's not like, oh, this is a function of something else. Like, this is by design. The
hmm,
design is
yeah,
for you to be confused, it's for you to be stressed, it's for you to be fearful, it's for you to like feel like you have to compete with other people. It's for you to feel like you have to just worry about you and your family and that you don't have time to care about your community. It is designed for that because it only works when we are operating in that mindset.
And when
As
you're
soon as everyone
alone,
is,
I was gonna say,
sorry,
like when you're alone, like in one of my articles, I was saying this quote, like Stalin said, like one death is a tragedy, but a million deaths is a statistic. And in capitalism, you feel like that statistic, like I'm just one person. How can I do anything? And you just automatically start out feeling defeated. And when you, like you talked about earlier, when you start to get, let's say you had the drive to be, I'm going to be a politician and do good, and you get in that system and it's so fucking corrupt, as we've seen recently, like it's to the core, absolutely corrupt. And not just corrupt, absolutely the worst kind of evil. There's not much you can do because everyone else there is evil. And then you go and tell people, like, imagine telling people, hey, there's a fucking sex island where they're raping children. What are you, fucking nuts? Get the fuck out of here. No one would believe you. But you're telling the truth. You're telling the truth.
yeah, it's again, it's such and it's why I have a hard time even having conversations with people who aren't neurodivergent, because so many of these conversations go into so many tangential directions that it's hard to have them without having the correlating things that
Right.
impact all of
Yeah.
those, right? Like, it's like, oh, how do we talk about politics without talking money in politics and Citizens United? And how do we talk about Democrats, Republicans without, like, there's so many layers to so much of it, but like I always remind people, I'm like, just pull out and look at it at the end of the day of what is the purpose of this system, like what is it designed to do, and you can always root cause to some level of control or some level of profit or some, like, and it's always there. Like, there is, I'm like, I wrote a thing that I haven't posted or done anything yet, but it's like, I can tell you that the problems that you're having in your marriage are due to capitalism. You're a bad parent because of capitalism. Your dog is sick because of capitalism. Your car, like everything in your life that you hate or don't like or are bothered by, I can root cause to some part of you having to operate within this capitalistic system that none of us raised our hand and said we want to operate in, but all of us are acting like is normal or is human nature. And it's not. To the point that you were making, it's literally the opposite of human nature. Human nature is community and collective.
Yeah. And just it always blew my mind because I would always think about if I was a leader and I had, bless you,
Oh,
bless you,
excuse me.
got three of them, four of them. If I was a leader and I had like food medicine and someone in my group, my community, I gave in my article, I gave the example about like, I don't know if you ever watched The Walking Dead. You ever watch that?
Yeah.
Right. With Rick. Let's say Rick had food and medicine and people in his group who he should care about, right? Who in the show he did. They were sick and dying and he had medicine to literally heal them, right? Otherwise they'd die of a fever or starve or something. And he was like, I don't know if you contributed enough. Like,
Yeah.
I'm going to let you die.
Yeah.
I know you've been working and you're a good person, and but you've been sick recently, so you haven't been able to help out for a while. So I'm just going to let you die because you haven't been worthy of it lately. And I deem whether you live or die. I don't think any leader, and by definition, a leader would not do this. A leader is there to look after the group for a community based out of love, cohesion, coherence, harmony.
Well, I think the part
So when we
that
call Donald Trump a leader and these other people, they're not fucking leaders. I always hate that we have to call them leaders.
I think I think most of those things are just semantics, right? We call it a leader because they're at the head of the thing,
Mm.
but like our definition of a leader is someone who is actually leading, right? Like not just someone who's controlling and being at the top. Like those are not the same thing. But I think we also have to, like, I always try and root cause everyone to again understand that Donald Trump is not Donald Trump, Barack Obama, Joe Biden, JF, like none of them were elected to be leaders. They were elected to be CEOs of a corporation. The United
Mm.
States of America is a corporation. And at the end of the day, Donald Trump is to me the most blatant version of like what we have all been operating within, right? Like
Mhm.
I
I believe that's why he got elected spiritually. I
yeah,
believe that he's
agreed.
there because he is the
One
epitome of,
thousand percent.
yeah, what
I,
is this?
I agree. I really believe that Donald Trump was elected literally to put a mirror up to humanity so that we could see what it is that we have decided to be.
Mhm.
Because at the end of the day, I made this other thing where I was saying we're seeing so many people using the word narcissist in common vernacular so much more now, right?
He's the
And it's
final
like, oh,
boss of
yeah, but it's
narcissism.
like,
Yeah.
oh, people think that, oh, people are overusing the term and saying it like, oh, people don't know what a narcissist is. People are just saying but I'm like, no, no, no. Like, I think that we are seeing a huge uptick in narcissism. Like, the
Mhm.
system that we are operating again necessitates a level of narcissism. And it's one of those where, like, again, that same example I gave of like Diddy, where it's like, oh, we want someone to be at this heightened level, 6 figure, 7 figure salary, but not be narcissistic in in a system that almost requires it to some point. And it's like
Mhm.
it's really hard to separate like what it takes to operate within the system and the traits that also come with that, and saying like, and it's again to the thing we were saying about politicians and stuff. I don't believe there's a politician alive that can get into the US government, whether it be the House, the Senate, president, vice president, Supreme Court, whatever else, and not be impacted by the system, because the system is so corrupt and it's so big and it's been there so long. And you're going to have so much pressure from so many people who have bought into the system. And it's the same way I feel living in broader society right now, where everyone's looking at me like, you're crazy. You're trying to operate outside of the system and you're just not going to go back and get another corporate job. Like, no, like, I don't believe in the system enough to, like, would I if it was necessitated? And that was, of course, I have to survive. And that's a reality that we all have to live in. You can't be so, optimistic, or not even optimistic, so conceptually, driven that you're like, I'm just gonna, not do anything. It's like what I was saying earlier. It's like Neo even had to go back into the Matrix to
Mhm.
change things. Like, you know what I mean? And it's like, and while he was there, until he freed everyone, until he did what he needed to do, he had to operate within the rules of the Matrix, even though he could fly, right? Like, I feel like I
Mhm.
can fly. I feel like I am literally operating outside of what the system has for me as a black man in the United States of America. The way that I express myself is an anomaly, in the same way the Matrix, like, described, like, the what's his name? The crap, what am I thinking about? The not the Oracle, the uh Oracle's counterpart,
Oh,
the
the
great
architect?
the architect, yes.
Yeah.
In the way the architect described, he's like, after so much time an anomaly arises. I was like, oh, that's how I feel about neurodivergence. We are the
Mhm.
anomaly rising right now that is meant to balance out the system. And so, like, that's been
Mhm.
my messaging of like,
See,
we're
that's
not
been my
here
concern
to
though,
get it.
is like I've studied the Matrix and like Zion, if you remember, like the architect says, there's been 6 iterations of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure you've heard of like global resets before in the past, and
Yep.
there might have been
Yep.
past civilizations
Yep.
and stuff. And I'm thinking like, all right, so yeah, they can't stop like the anomaly. They can't stop certain percentage of people from awakening, and they have that path laid out. The architect laid the path out for Neo to escape. He knew it was
Mm-hmm.
going to happen, and
Mm-hmm.
Neo, he's like, oh, you're faster than the others or whatever.
Yeah.
And then they go and destroy Zion. So I'm like, are we actually about to finally be free and have the golden age, the age of awakening, or age of Aquarius stuff, or whatever forces there are? Do they know that a percentage of us are going to wake up? We are going to be free for a second, and they're going to collectively destroy us again. That's been my
So
metaphysical
I
thing
think that
for it.
what you're describing is what would happen, but I think there's a part of me that understands that there is something within me and other people that I recognize is connected to a much greater entity. And so, the same way we talk about the entity that controls Earth, there is an entity that I believe controls higher than Earth that is on the side of humanity. To again,
Mm.
it's just universal balance in a way. And so I think that as more people awaken and this force starts, like, because we see it right now, right? Like, we see more people awakening to the atrocities happening around the world who are just like, this system is just not okay. Whether you're on the left, right, whatever religion or whatever else, there's starting to be a collective uprising of like, this just isn't okay. It doesn't matter what you believe or what you're rooted in.
Yeah.
Like the world's just not okay. And I think as that builds up the pressure from the top, and we're seeing that again in every country trying to close down these, systematic people who are rioting and people who are protesting and things like that. I completely unfounded, complete conjecture, just a gut feeling of, you remember when we were seeing all those orbs and people were talking about those orbs of light that were all around and we had no definition of like really what they are. And I know there were a bunch of conspiracy theories of like what they are. I feel like there are part of those that were connected to whatever is there to keep humanity in balance. Meaning, like, when these powers that be get so oppressive that they start to, shut down the uprisings that are already happening, there is an entity that, rather it be a spiritual entity, a physical entity, rather that be when we collectively realize that we are not alone, and that shifts consciousness. Because I feel like there is a huge event that will happen that's going to wake everybody up. That's my personal belief.
Yeah.
I think it's going to either be like the electric grid and the internet going down for a sustained period of time where everyone is forced to live in close community and then be disconnected from the higher level matrix for long enough to like wake up kind of naturally, or it's going to be some level of like, we have real confirmation that we are no longer alone, and humanity, like the movie Independence Day, is forced to do what we should have done a long fucking time ago, which is act like a collective unit and not, be still bombing and trying to threaten to nuke each other.
I have so many things going off. I know you. It's so interesting to know I'm talking to another neurodivergent person that's like that. I just, in my real life, no one's like, they're always just thinking about one thing. They don't know the tangents they don't have. So it's kind of cool to have someone.
I can't have these. I don't have these conversations with people because it's like, what's the point? And not to say it in that way. It's just, if your mind doesn't see the tangents and all of the things connected to it, then you're just as wrong as anyone else looking at just a singular part of the problem, because it is so all encompassing that you have to see it as a whole to start to change it. Otherwise you say, oh, I'm going to run for office and I'm going to change things. And it's like, no, like, you know what I mean? Like, I just don't believe, I believe that if there was somehow 50 people who could run for Senate and 300 people who could run for House, and like, we could really upend, like, sure, I think.
Well, I've seen movements like that. I want to interview her. I forget her name, but she's too young to run for president. But she says when she's old enough, she's going to run. I think it's called the Progressive Party or something she founded. And she's trying to get a whole, 50 or 100 people to start filling seats. So I'm like, there is a possibility. Yeah, I'm kind of like you, where it's right now it's not. But when she's making this and getting a lot of people, that would make it possible.
But I think even her just doing it, I think a lot of times part of our purpose is, and it's kind of what I was talking about earlier, where I said, like, I don't know that I'm going to see the ends or the fruits of my labor. Because let's take that example, right? Let's say that she is creating this coalition, or she's creating this architecture for a party where it is, I'm running for president, this person's vice president, we have all 50 senators, we have all seats in the House, this is who you should vote for in order to create this new world, right? And if we could, I think that conceptually creating that as an idea right now is one of those things that everyone feels like is bullshit. Like, there's no way that we will get that to happen right now. But I think there is a lot of value still in her creating this foundational idea that will permeate into someone's mind. And then my children's child actually can bring it to fruition, because now the idea has percolated in society enough to where people actually believe like, oh, maybe we can do this and we should do this next election, and then buy into it. Because again, it's changing the world is not hard. Changing people's minds are, and changing people's minds, no matter how good you are at orating or teaching or communicating or whatever else, it takes time. People's have to be like, the programming has to be deconstructed in a way that just it doesn't matter how smart you are, how bright you are. You can be the highest IQ, EQ person on the planet, but that integration of like really understanding these lessons and like understanding like, oh, it really does take all of us. Cause like there are parts of me that had become nihilistic because I'm like, oh, I really can't do this on my own. And I also don't see enough other people who think or feel the way that I do to make the kind of change that I know is necessary. But it was me having that thought of realizing, oh, these people don't exist, to where now I'm like, oh, let me start talking about it. And now I'm finding the other people who do exist. And again, my work is I'm building the community so that we are all collectively aligned on who we are, what we are, how we operate, what we should do. And I hope that my children's generation or the next is able to take that baton and really enact the type of change that we, you know, I feel like from this conversation, both collectively believe is possible. It takes a lot, you know, because it's
well, going back to what you said about like the orbs, about the orbs and stuff, that would cause a huge mass collective conscious awakening and change. I don't know if you're aware of Chris Bledsoe and his story, his whole thing.
No.
It's kind of a lot to explain, but basically he's one of the most studied people for the orb phenomena, and he can summon them with his mind. It's not like a bullshit thing. Like many people will go and watch him summon them and do the whole thing. And his story is, he calls it the divine feminine, who's had many different names throughout history, Isis, Virgin Mary, or different stuff. And based on his experience, which you can look up and judge for yourself, he says, he said it since like 2012, or I think he was told in 2012, but his experience happened since 2007 or something. That Easter of 2026 is going to be the year that the presence is finally here. She said to him, he calls her the lady, the divine feminine. She said to him that when the suffering of man, and it's fun, I thought you knew who he was because he said something similar to it. She said, when the suffering of man becomes too great, we're going to come and stop it. And she said, when the star of Regulus is in the eye of the Sphinx, they always talk in riddles, right?
Yeah.
Which is a little annoying, but my experiences are like that too. It's always symbolic, and it's like, I know neurodivergent. It's funny because neurodivergent people.
It's a construct, and like I think that's why we receive so many of our messages without like a real like sense of time in that way. But yeah,
that's a good point too. But I was just going to say, like neurodivergent people, we don't like BS, right? Like we like clear to the point. But whenever I'm talking to the universe or guardian angels or whatever, it's always in synchronicities and symbols. I'm like, can you just tell me? Can you just talk to me?
Up.
Yeah. I'm like, I've been initiated. I've died a bunch. I've done the whole thing. Like, just talk to me. Appear and talk to me, please. Yep. Please. I've had that conversation many times, but it's always.
But you know, I think that's an interesting thing too, because and it goes into the neurodivergent part also, is I think there's I made a piece of content where I said we don't have enough words, right? Like for the complexity of society and the complexity of all of the things technologically and all the things that have changed over time, we don't have enough words for all of those things. And we're trying to communicate extremely complex situations, things, emotions, and we literally don't have enough words. And it's one of those.
And the etymology of our words, I've noticed, I've noticed a lot of like inverted meanings.
Yes.
Good morning, hello.
It's a semantic-y thing that creates a lot of confusion because we don't have enough words, for one. And then we all also use these words slightly differently or have a different intellectual or emotional connotation to what we feel the word means. And it's one of those things where I say, like, neurodivergence, the reason I feel like we can have such complex conversations is we're not always listening to just the words. Like, we do speak very specifically and with specificity, but we can also feel what the person is saying and get the understanding without
The
it
energy.
having to be perfectly accurate. Or
Yeah.
we will reframe it with words that we think are more accurate and confirm in that way. But I there's a field, like, felt portion of the communication that I think this society that we have collectively created and agreed upon forces us to mute, because it's like, no, words are king, and what you feel or whatever your feelings are just feel. It's like, no, like, we communicate through those feelings and through those connotations and all of those pieces. All of those things matter just as much as the words. And it's one of those where once we are able to start communicating, I say without don't just hear me, but feel me. Like, if you can feel me, I feel like a lot of people see my content and they don't just hear me, they feel me, because there is a feeling behind what it is that I'm saying, and that resonates. And I think if more of our communication, like, actually, like, paid attention to the feeling of what people were saying, we wouldn't get so caught up in the semantics and the arguments of different things. Because I'm like, what's going on over in Gaza and stuff. I was like, there aren't words that you can tell me to justify these things, because the feeling that I have is like, I don't care what the situation is. Little children shouldn't be shot. Little children shouldn't be starved, shouldn't be bombed. Like, it's just, it doesn't matter. Like, there's nothing that you can say with words that will change that for me. Not deliberately, like, deliberately doing these things to me it's a level of evil that I'm like, it's hard for me to look at it differently or have a discussion that silences the emotional aspect of the actual situation. Because you're saying, well, this happened on October 2nd, this happened, and they did this first. And I'm like, I don't give a fuck about none of that. What I'm telling you is that little children being starved and killed isn't okay. Full stop. And the feeling behind that is those little kids did not sign up for this game, this war, this thing that is happening the same way we didn't sign up for this capitalistic, oppressive ass system. And so I don't see them any.
And you know what's super fucking annoying is some spiritual people are like, oh, those people in Gaza getting blown up, those kids, it's in their soul contract. It's in there. They're learning and growing from, like, what the fuck are you talking about? It's not in their soul contract. It's ridiculous.
I think there are people who, like, I've been grateful to not run into a lot of people on social media who respond to my content or things like that, because I feel like that's just, it's so pervasively, like, just, okay, let me take a step back. I can't even say that they're wrong, again, because I don't know, right? And so if I'm being objectively saying the truth, they could be right, I could be wrong. They have just as much right to believe or think whatever they believe as I do, right? So, like, getting that out of the way, I think that there is a part of me that recognizes that anyone who justifies the idea of this is how we designed it and how it's supposed to be has lost the connection to humanity to understand. Like, it's almost like you ate so much bullshit that you got diabetes and had to have your foot cut off. And it's like, oh, the foot cut off was a part of our, social contract. It's like, no, we made really bad decisions that caused us to have the foot cut off. And yes, humanity, the body is still alive, but we don't have a foot because we couldn't stop doing these things that were harmful to us as a whole. Like, that's the way I see all of these wars and genocides and fights, and like all of it to me is our inability to orchestrate a society that allows all of us to live, breathe, exist without, like, constantly having to fight or worry about death, starvation, homelessness, or whatever else.
Well, it could be the Garden of Eden, right? It could be a paradise. That's the potential. And it's just been ruined and made into a That's what makes me believe this is a prison planet. Some people say, oh, it's a school, you come here to learn lessons. And yeah, that's why you got to go through some torture and torment. And oh, it builds character for the people that, like for me, let's say they'll say, oh, Michael, you had to go through all the dying and the being handicapped and all the suffering and all the narcissistic abuse, all this shit. And they're like, you learn lessons, you grew from that, your soul grew from that. And I'm like, well, how many lessons can you learn when the pain is still, my last article I wrote, I was disagreeing with Aristotle where he said like pain is the greatest teacher. And I said, no, I don't agree. Because pain may have been a teacher at one point, but pain is no longer my teacher because it kept hurting me after I learned the lesson. How much more can you learn? And if your memory is wiped after every lifetime and reincarnation, you can't learn, you can't grow any longer. I think that's just one giant scam. And I think that us here, certain people here like neurodivergents are here to break people free from the system. I think that's who Jesus was. I think he was an extremely powerful being. Maybe he was the son of the one true God in Gnosticism. I don't know if you've ever started studying Gnosticism, but it's called the monad, the one true real reality. And this is like the inverted upside down from Stranger Things. And he came here, whether he's the true son of God or just an ascended master, someone who mastered all this stuff already, came to show us a way out, like to wake people up. Like, again, Neo from the Matrix, who was based off Jesus Christ. And I definitely believe he's a real person. I've had my experiences with him. I was going to ask you your opinion on him as well. I know you talked about him a little bit, but he's definitely helped me very recently in my life. Like, he is 100% real, and anyone listening, you don't have to pray to him like, you don't have to be subservient to him. It does that idea in the church and all that stuff. He wants to help you. He wants to be a friend. Like, ask him to be he will be your best friend more than anyone else who will let you down. Trust me. Like, he'll be there for you.
I think it's one of those, like, for me, the contextual, it falls into the camp of, again, I don't know, and I can sit here and act like my beliefs or my thoughts that I currently have are definitive and that I'm right. But the truth is, I really don't know. What I believe currently is that Jesus, the Christ, was a man who was here on earth literally for the purposes of what it is that you are saying, to show us how to mentally, spiritually, and emotionally evolve out of the state that we are in, the literal, whether you call it prison system, earth school, whatever version of this thing that we are in. I think that Jesus was sent here, or was here and ascended past all of the things that hold us down to this reality, and was here to show us how to do the same. I don't believe that Jesus was in the ways that the Christianity teaches the Son of God, in like he is God in physical form. Like, to me, it doesn't pass the historical context test, because the story of Jesus exists prior to actual Jesus existing. But I think the story of Jesus existing is the story of other men and people who have done the same thing and transcended into the plane that Jesus was able to ascend to. Also examples of what we can all do and be here on earth. And to the point of calling on him, I strongly believe I am against externalizing any portion of my power to another entity. I believe that God is literally within all of us. And so when we are praying to God or praying to whatever, we're literally praying to ourselves. We are still creating the consciousness that creates the actions. We're just rooting it in God. We're rooting it in Jesus. We're rooting it in Allah. We're rooting it in whatever. But that root, not to say it doesn't matter, but your belief is what actually matters. So if your belief is rooted in any of those things, it will come to fruition because it's your belief, and it's like, once you actually have the actual belief, that is what will create in reality. And that is why, like, the idea of even Jesus with the fish, I'm like, okay, 3 fish and 2 loaves of bread. And how do you, because the reality that he is creating in that moment is able to pull from another multiverse to conceptually always have two fish and 3 loaves of bread in this basket. You pull out one, there's still 3 fish and 2 loaves. Like, to me, that is quantum physics and quantum entanglement in a way that is both scientific and spiritual, but really is just elevating past our conceptual understanding of this physical plane, because we
Same
see
way walking
it
on
as,
water, right? Matching the vibration.
Literally. It's all the same thing. And it's like, I don't know for sure that these parables and things are real, but I really do believe that we have the ability to walk on water. I do believe we have the ability to walk through walls. I do believe that we have the ability
Quantum
to have
tunneling.
telekinesis, to have
Yeah.
telekinetic, like all of the things that we've seen in the movies and the X-Men and all. I believe that we have that capacity within our consciousness. I just don't think we have access to it yet. That saying, we use 4% of our brain thing, I don't think it's about using our brain like it's horsepower. It's about, like, our brains are not just a radio signal, they're a fucking satellite that can pick up millions and trillions of stations. We just only know how to pick up 4 stations. And once we realize how to pick up the rest of those stations, we can pick up the station that puts us in the timeline where this 3 loaves of bread and 2 fish are infinite. And I think that
to be
is
in your desired reality whenever you want.
correct.
Right.
Correct.
And I think that we're all definitely possible. It makes sense to me that that's the natural order to things. And there's some demiurge, some archetype, like in the Matrix, that is suppressing us through like some frequency spell. And that's preventing our radio signal from reaching those abilities. I think I feel like we're shown the truth in movies and it's almost making fun of us that like we used to have this.
Yeah. But it's I think that's the insidiousness of it, Michael, to me, is like they put the reality.
That's how I feel in me. Like ever since growing, like I feel that's me. Like I feel like that's been stolen from me. And it's always upset me deeply since I was a child.
That is literally, to me, the insidiousness of it, because I think that that's what it does, is it puts reality in your face and paints it as fiction and science fiction to where it almost inverts your mind to understanding what's real and what's like science fiction. And you're like, oh, that's not possible because that is science fiction. To move things with your mind or to move through walls or to whatever these things are is science fiction. It's not real. It's not possible. And so we lose any, like, I really believe that if we like birthed a bunch of children and for whatever reason we had some people who were extremely gifted in being able to lie to them and just say, yeah, you can walk through walls, you just have to get to that point in life, like, and telling them these types of things where they really grow up believing like, oh, I can walk and a collective community of people who believe, oh, we can do this, we just have to figure out, we have to remember how. We like, that is our mission, is to remember how to walk through walls, to remember how to do. I think that we would generationally get there really fast, because I really do think, again, so much of our power is in our belief system, and that is why the system is set up in the way it is to literally crush your beliefs, to crush your belief in self, to crush your belief in community, to crush your belief in you can do better, get out, make changes, all of these things. It makes everything so hard and complex to the point where you just are like, I just need to survive. And that's the design. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
right, it's from the very beginning. And like
the design.
The first 7 years are in recorder mode, right? Theta brainwave state. And if you were empowered during that time, like, yeah, anything's possible. But I also think about, like, have you ever seen the movie They Live?
Yeah.
Right? So, and for anyone who hasn't seen it listening, you Google it real quick or ask ChatGPT. Like, in the end, there's that, again, the frequency that's been hiding who the real reptilian beings are. And there's many of them, too. It's not just like one leader. It's many, many, at many levels. I just think that that metaphor is true. I mean, whether it's just the reptilian part or this frequency spell, if we find where that frequency is coming from, maybe it's the 5G towers and it's only getting more powerful and all that shit. Or, I used to think that's crazy. I'm like, oh, come on. Oh, people saying 5G is crazy. But after Epstein having an island and all the stuff, all the politicians being compromised, anything's
Yeah,
possible right now.
that's the
Like,
thing. It's like it's one of those like we have to understand, and this is the part that I realized working in tech is that whatever we as consumers have access to, what actually exists already is 1,000 times better and a
right.
thousand times smarter, 1,000 times more. So it's like we know that there is techno. We already know the perils of social media influence on us and ads and scrolling and all of the ways that they change our literal mental makeup of how we see the world. That's what we know about, and it's like about that, but you don't even know that they're also controlling the movies, the news, the TV. Like every single thing is controlled with this same mission, the same objective, and everyone, Democrat, Republicans, everyone's playing on the same sheet music because by design, this is what we are creating and controlling. And yeah, we make it seem like we're fighting, we make it seem like we're trying, we make it seem like all these things, but the reality is by design, it is meant to be this way. And there is very specific things in whether it's 5G, whether it's satellites, whether it's mass media, whatever the fuck it
Mm.
is. We know and can feel that it exists because you recognize how many people are just asleep and under this spell of illusion. And it's like, you can look back at your own life and realize when before you remembered or before you woke up and were in that illusion, and you look back and you're like, shit, like like it was a
Uh,
lot, but it's also like you realize like, oh, it's meant to be a lot. Like the
mhm.
indoctrination is insane.
Yeah. It's just a psyop at every turn. I mean, everywhere, nonstop.
Every,
And it's a
every
Truman Show. Like you watch the Truman Show, like that is real. That is 100% real. And when I was very young, I asked my mom's boyfriend at the time. I mean, I was like, I don't know, maybe 8 or something, or maybe I was 10 or something. I was like, hey, I was just I don't remember how it got brought up, but I said, I feel like I'm always being watched. I feel like there's something very wrong with the world, and I'm always being watched and lied to. And he's like, oh, you're talking about like the Truman Show. And I'm like 10 or whatever. I'm like, never heard of the Truman Show. And I didn't watch it till I was like in my late teens. And I was like, oh, this is exactly what I felt growing up. And I'm like, because I felt it without knowing what that is. And there's been a bunch of other revelations I've had too. Like, oh, I had that feeling as a kid. It's probably right. Like, that's been my guidance system, is my intuition. Like, I think I just had that memory, that you're still, when you're younger, you still feel it. And it's just all come to, everything I've ever felt as a child has come to be true. So I'm like, that's just my guiding thing. And I just think we're living in the fucking Truman Show.
We are. And I couldn't. It's why I think that feeling that you're describing is what I talk about when I say I don't believe in local consciousness, because I think that that feeling of being observed is actually you are being observed by every consciousness that exists that is not trapped in this realm, because
Mm-hmm.
the way that we see this realm is inaccurate, and like we do have omnipresence and omnivision in that type of way, where like once your body's no longer hearing, your consciousness, your grandparents, your whomever has passed away, ancestors or whatever, do have visibility into you because they're no longer in this consciousness. Again, could be completely wrong. I am not married to the idea,
Uh,
but it's more of a, oh, this is what feels right, because that feeling you're describing, I'm like, I don't know many thinking people who sit in the quiet by themselves who are just not like, why the fuck do I feel like I'm being watched? Like that
mm,
same feeling you have when someone walks up behind you and you can tell someone's behind you, like it's
right.
the same feeling. And it's
Mm,
like, that's not a, like, that's not a feeling that I feel like you get tricked into having if there's not some reality to it. And so when I think of, again, the percentage of our brain that we use, the percentage of our eyes that like the percentage of light frequencies that we can actually see, I'm like, we're
less than
practically
1%.
blind. Yeah, we're practically blind.
Yeah.
Like in terms of the universe, we're literally blind. And this is just
Mm,
the physical universe that we know of. Not even talking about the spiritual or whatever could happen above and beyond or below that. It's like we are blind and stupid. Like if you
mm,
really want to be honest about it, it's like humans are young and relative to the universe, and we are like not that smart in comparison to like how much of our actual capacity I think we have the ability to use.
And
And
I
I
always
do,
think about, oh, God.
no, I'll say I do think to your point, there are people who absolutely know everything that we are like everything that we are capable of, everything we can do, every piece of it, and that is why the system exists the way it does, to literally dampen
Mhm.
our ability to connect to source, to
Which
be
are the
able to.
archons doing the bidding of the demiurge,
Correct,
right? Yeah.
correct. Yeah.
And I think the people who are gifted, like you and me, and any neurodivergent people, they're probably watched a lot more.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I've told people, I was like, I don't even, I don't have any reason to believe that my phone is tapped or that but I'm just like, I think it's too easy to do it nowadays, to where it would be crazy of me not to think that I'm being watched, monitored in some, even if it's just a large fishing net of possible people to keep an eye, like to anyone
Yeah.
who said we're neurodivergent or
Or just
ADHD,
AI, right? Just in general, they're doing
whatever, or
everyone. Like,
any of
yeah.
those things. Like, it's like the way that we can process information now is so surreal that it's just like it's part of why I plan, like I designed my life to live transparently,
Me
because
too.
a big part
Yeah.
of what I feel like is happening with politicians and Epstein and all these things is the blackmail, right? Like, it's, you are so ashamed of these things and people or whatever that you have been, that you are now a liability to the overall community, because you're not ready to be honest about what it is that you are, who you've done, or what you've done in the past. And that is keeping our future from being where it needs to be. I don't ever want to be in that position. I want, if anyone ever says, Phil did this, I was like, yeah, I did do that. This is what happened. This is, let me, you can agree or disagree, you can believe me or not believe me, but I'm not shying away from any topic or anything that I've done and or been, because I recognize, one, how that has played a part in who I am now and the understandings and things that I have, but two, that shame is the greatest form of control, and I'll never be controlled by shame. Like, you'll never
I
shame
agree.
me to control me. Will I feel ashamed of things that I'm sure? Like, I'll have regrets and all those things. Will you ever be able to control me with those things? Never. Never.
It's the right way to
Then
do it.
I'll,
It's really the only way to do it moving
the
forward.
only way. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
like I realized how much it freed me even from corporations. As soon as I'm like, I don't give a fuck what corporations think about me anymore. I used to be like, I don't want to say it on social media. What if this company sees it or something? Like, I don't give a fuck anymore. Like, I don't. And it's one of those like, oh, corporations are paying me more now to just come and talk shit to them or talk about topics than they were for me to be a productive person there. And I'm like, yeah, I that's by design too. Like, they'll invite the truth tellers in to make it, but that's by design too. That's a different level of control
Right.
or type of
And
control.
I was going to mention too, like, I wrote an article about this, about all about comedy and stuff, and how I realized with, I have a very dark sense of humor. And I realized that whenever you're watching like a dark comedy movie, we're laughing at the pain of those characters. To them, it's serious, right? It's like real pain. It's a serious situation. And we're laughing at it because we have that distant perspective. But they're somewhere in the multiverse, and they've got to be real. If the multiverse exists, they're really dealing with that. So we're laughing at real people's pain and shit, going through stuff. So what if other beings, like in Rick and Morty, multidimensional cable, are just watching what we're going through with distance, and our lives are just a comedy to the beings in the monad or something?
Like, here's the thing. And this is a more recent thought that I've had as I've started building content on social media and gaining fault, like that kind of thing, is that like that concept that you're describing isn't very different than I think a lot of content creators already experience, right? Like, there's another content creator that I followed who made a really passionate post where she was essentially discussing how she felt dehumanized by her followers in a way where when she did talk about something that was really vulnerable that she was going through, the responses very much seemed like they were responding about a character on a TV show. Like, you know what I mean? And I was like, they are. Like, to them,
Yeah.
you are a TV character. You're like, you can be as authentic and human and real as you want, but until you have a conversation like you and I are having where you see the humanity in this person, they're a character. And it's
Mhm.
like we really do already do that. We talk about other people's demise and other people's issues and other people's things in the same way that you'd watch those TV shows. We talk about it on social media, etc. But it's literally the same thing. And it's like I really have come to a strong understanding of as above, so below as a concept, meaning like whatever is happening in my own world and my own life is happening at a higher level too. And so
Mhm.
it's like I already see people treating people just on Instagram like a TV character or something like that.
Yeah.
Imagine that in the infiniteness of the multiverse with beings and even entities that are ourselves who have access to the technology and things that we are blocked from currently, who can watch us on whatever and just dial up, universe 999, and that happens to be the one where you and I are having this conversation.
Mm. Yeah, it seems like I always thought about what is the nature of storytelling. I got obsessed for that for a while because we're always consuming stories. That seems to be the biggest, whether you're in tribes passing stories down for entertainment and art and stuff like that, or you're watching Netflix, people are obsessed with consuming stories and characters and what people go through, whether it's for learning or entertainment or whatever purpose. And I think that is just the nature of reality. Everything is a story. Everything's an unfolding continuously. And I agree, as above, so below. And just because they're in a higher dimension, that doesn't mean they're all good. And even if
No,
you're, and how do you define morality, anyways? If we're watching the movie The Hangover and they're worried about finding their friend on the roof, I was watching that recently. It's one of the best comedy movies ever. But they think their friend's like dead in several of the movies. Or, one of the movies, Stu banged, he had sex with a transvestite, didn't want to
yeah,
do that. And another one, I think at the very end of the third one, at the end credit scenes, he woke up and he has like giant tits and he's panicking and shit. To him, that's like a fucking big problem, but it's hilarious to
yeah.
us. So does that make you a bad person for laughing at it? How do you define morality? Is God just like up there, in his holy trinity point of view, you know, thinking,
And I
laughing?
think that's why it's hard for me to like buy into the conceptual idea of like this overarching being kind of in that type of way versus like if anything, the overarching being is a reflection of all of us, right? So, like, the
Hmm.
parts of you that are being laughed at is still a part of this overall being. It's like laughing at your finger or laughing at having a pimple or something
Hmm.
because that person is just in this hole, a pimple, or and I
Right.
thought about even the fact of like people in this world who are problematic. I was like, it's no different than your body having cancer. It's like you do have to sometimes do the things to kill the cancer within your body so it doesn't kill the whole. As above, so below. Like we can't see these things happening within our natural bodies, amputation, cancer, chemo, whatever we need to do to heal the whole, and not think that that is a part of the whole of society. Like I'm not a person. I don't believe in the death penalty. I don't believe in wars. I inherently don't. But I do understand the conceptual idea of some people have to go. Like just like there are some cells in our body that are so damaged that it would do our body a service to have those cells removed from the rest of the body. And it's no different
Hmm.
than real life. And I'm not saying I'm the one who gets to judge or decide or be that person, but it's hard again when you really do understand and believe that as above, so below. It's like you have to understand that there are people who are so bad that they cannot be redeemed. There are
Hmm.
cells in our body that are so bad that are so damaged that they cannot be redeemed. They can only die off and go away or be removed. And it's the same thing that we see in society. It's our collective fault, right? Like the cancer cells are a reflection of my eating choices or my, whatever I took into my body or my
Well,
environmental
we're kind of being poisoned
whatever.
against our will too. That's the
Yeah,
thing.
right. But it's still
I know what you mean. Yeah.
a function of something, right?
Yeah.
And it's like it's the same thing in the greater world. It's like, oh, these cancers exist. I hate that the idea that I have to kill or remove some people from society But at the end of the day, if I recognize it's a cancer cell, like being empathetic to a cancer cell is insane.
Which is what narcissism is, but in my opinion, narcissism is the spirit of evil. Yes. I truly believe that, because it's the inversion of truth and the manipulation against someone's will about what they desire to experience, right? Ooh. And I think that's the definition of evil.
That's a great way to say that.
Thank you. And I'm writing an article right now.
Yeah.
I'm writing an article right now called Evil Has No Right to Exist. You're not going to find another person who is right. I believe in righteous justice. I believe there is a stark difference between darkness and evil, a huge difference. You can have light and dark within goodness. You can have that contrast, and evil is completely on its own. Evil only wants what's for evil. Light and dark can be, and people say it's duality, but you can have a duality of how about having a low darkness, a low contrasting point of peace, and then you go up to elation, and then go back down to calm and clarity and meditative tranquility, and back up to orgasmic pleasure. You can have that kind of duality. It doesn't have to be all pain and suffering. Like I said earlier, pain is not the greatest teacher. It keeps hurting you after you learn the lesson. There's other ways to receive that clarity. Oh, did my microphone go out?
No, it didn't go out. It had a inflection of some sort.
Oh, that's weird. Yeah. I don't think that whatever spiritual entity is stopping me from talking.
No,
is it still going out? It keeps switching on my screen. That's weird.
I mean, I can hear you fine.
We're talking about evil. And,
yeah. And here's the thing, too, is like...
I swear to God, that's what's popping up on my screen. It's saying your microphone's input's being switched. Okay, I guess we're fine now. I don't know how...
Fine on my end, yeah.
Okay. Yes, fine, of course. That stuff happens to me all the time. My lights go on by themselves. Other people have witnessed it. I'll be like, all right, somebody here, go on. I'll point to it. It'll turn on its own. And that's the level I'm dealing with, that kind of shit.
Yeah, and I think to the point you were making earlier, like the spiritual warfare that exists is something that we don't yet have conceptual understanding of, but we've all experienced in some way, shape, or form of like things like that, where you are talking about this thing or you are whatever, and something irrational or ridiculous happens, and it's like, yeah, you can ignore it, but like I think a part of, again, neurodivergence is the pattern recognition over your lifetime, and you're like, okay, I've had this experience in my lifetime too many times for it to be a coincidence.
I've tried to explain it away in every way possible. Again, at a certain point, you just can't. You can't. And I also can't explain away the fact that I've died over a dozen times, and something keeps bringing me back, even if I want to go. It's just, you're here. And I don't know if that's like God or a good force being like, hey, you're here to help people, or it's the prison system being like, you're not escaping. I need you here for your energy. I don't know what it is, but
I think the two ideas that you floated out there of like Earth is a prison versus Earth school, I think we exist somewhere between the two. I think that the prison is an analogy or allegory for the idea that we cannot escape until we transcend. And so when it is considered a school, it's like, yeah, you're going to keep coming back because you're going to die. Your physical form is going to die, so your consciousness is going to return back, and then it's going to come back again to get... It's almost like going to school, picking your classes. I do think there's, again, all conjecture, because I have no fucking idea. But it seems to pass kind of that makes sense, because I definitely recognize that life is easier for me when I accept the things that come and look for the lesson and then integrate the lesson from the thing. And then the thing doesn't seem nearly as bad or last as long. And so that has reinforced my idea of like, okay, we have to be here for Earth School, because I didn't do anything to deserve that, but I did need that lesson. And so that lesson came to give me something I needed that I didn't know that I needed, type of thing. But I feel like it's a prison in you can't escape it until you transcend these levels, the same way we were talking about, like with Jesus, where it's like, until you get to that level, you're going to keep coming back to Earth school. You can shoot yourself, you can kill yourself, you can die, you can whatever.
Yeah.
Until you get to this transcendent level, you're going to keep coming back, because the transcendent level is the one that the entities and people like Jesus the Christ get to. And that's why you feel like you're being watched, because all those transcendent entities do actually still exist, and they're all around us in like everything everywhere all at once type of way, not like a Ghost, the movie, where there's
Uh-huh.
someone standing next to you, even though
But
that's
my question about that would be, is if we're all God, why would we need to evolve our consciousness if we have access to everything that already exists? And if your memory is wiped, then
I think it's a valid question.
you can't learn.
I've read stories of like, you've seen parables. Think of like the movie Aladdin, where Princess Jasmine is like in the palace, but she wants to see what the life is like in this other way, or experience life in a different way. So she goes and, dresses up like a street rat type of thing. That I've heard, parables of like, that is how we are in God. We are all fractals, like, of God broken into glass and purposely made ourselves forget so that we could have the experience of this thing. Again, I feel like all of it is conjecture. I agree with you. I think it doesn't make sense. Like, I feel the same way you feel about it doesn't make sense that we are all God. I was like, I feel that same way about Jesus. It's like, why would God need to, like, the idea of Christianity? I mean, like, why would God need to create another being for him to come here to save us when he's God already? And like,
There's a missing element clearly to
yeah,
this stuff that we don't know. And it
yes.
is possible that there is, that he might have, maybe that he's like, okay, I'm done with humans or this experiments or this simulation. I'm just going to get rid of it all. And he's like, one last thing, I'm going to go in human form. If I can do it, then I'll allow it to exist, and there's a way out, or I don't know, something.
Maybe.
There's possibilities, but I agree that it makes sense.
Again,
There's an element missing to the story.
I think that is the part that will always be missing. And so, like, that's my thought process again, is like, I always preface my discussions around God with the fact that I am humble enough to recognize that I recognize what the definition of omnipotent and infinite mean, even though I cannot conceptually,
Right.
in my brain, conceptualize them. But because I can conceptualize my inability to conceptualize them, I know that my ignorance of God and whatever is happening is also infinite. Like, I can conjecture about it on so many levels, but the truth is that we are the end of a fingernail in our understanding of God in totality. All of our best guesses are as consequential to the true understanding of God as the tip of my fingernail. And like,
Right.
that's how much of the whole we have, is what I actually believe. But I think we have to keep conjecturing and having these discussions, because they get us closer to an understanding. Because I don't think, again, I don't think that anyone can tell you who God is. I think you experience God for yourself. And I think that's also a part of where we are in this space-time existence, is that God is literally different for each of us, because we each get to God in our own unique way.
And we're at a different point, right?
And we're literally different location. I tell you all the time, it's like, if you were looking at a star, and I'm standing on this block and you're standing 6 miles due north, I can't tell you how to get to another location from where I am using that star. My reference point is very different than yours. We're both looking at the same star.
Right.
You're starting from a different place. So you have to go north, south, east, east, then west. I have to go west, south, east, north, north, then, whatever. We're using the same reference point, using the same thing, but the way that I got there is different than the way that you get there, because we started from different places. We're in different places. We're both seem like we're physically on this Zoom, but we are literally in infinitely different conceptual realities, because we create our reality with our mind.
Right. But if we are in a prison planet and stuff like that. I made the discovery recently that I believe the stories of like Zeus and Hades and all that stuff, like Zeus is probably Yaldabaoth, the god of the Old Testament, and Hades is Lucifer, the devil, or whatever that character is supposed to be. And they work together. If you watch like the movie Clash of the Titans, I rewatched that recently. They work together so that Zeus allows Hades to torment humanity. And he feeds off that pain, fear, and suffering, and then which is energy, emotion. And then Zeus, Yaldabaoth, feeds off the prayers of people begging for help and sending the love and stuff. So it's just two forms, two entities working together. I think that's what the demiurgic system is. And this might have been a school that got corrupted. Like we use simulations to train and evolve AI, which is a form of possible consciousness. So this might be we're a fractal of God and we're being trained here for a certain purpose or something, and it got taken over. My question would be, why would whether it's an all source energy in the monad, the true reality, why would it allow us to be trapped? That's why I've always come back to. And let me know if you're good on time. We can end it if you want to.
Yeah, I'm fine. Keeping you. Whenever. But I think that I haven't
even touched my notes. I've just been going off. We got spirituality.
This typically happens with conversations with me anyway. I can start with a long list and, the tangents take us where we go. It's why I've never fully bought into the full prison system versus Earth school kind of idea. Again, both of them could be right. Both of them could be completely wrong. And we're just having a conjectured conversation. But I do think that the prison system, or the prison concept falls apart kind of for the same reason that you're saying, where it's like, okay, why are we being trapped here and for what purpose? But I think there's also a part of that could be okay, that could still be true. And we're just ignorant to the purpose, or because we're such three-dimensional beings in our mind that we don't even understand that the next level is something that we again can't even conceptually understand.
So you're more on the path either way, no matter what, I'm still here, I'm still living, and it runs easier if I just
either way I have
learn the lesson and go
do the absolute best with what I have, and all I can do is conjecture of my purpose here. And I think a big part of it for me has been learning to follow my instincts and be my authentic self, which I think frees me to get a better understanding faster, right? I tell people all the time, I was like, I'm going to be wrong so much with so much of the content that I'm making, and I accept and I'm looking forward to that, because it's almost like the sooner that I'm wrong, the sooner I can be right. Or the sooner I say something that's like, that sounds crazy, Phil. How about this hypothesis? I'm like, you know what, Michael? That hypothesis makes sense to me. I can now adopt that because I vocalized this wrong thing or not even wrong, but this thing that made sense to me at the time. But then you brought up something that made it like, oh, that doesn't make as much sense in that context. Maybe you're right. And so I'll adopt that. And I'm that kind of person of I'm about the progression, evolution of thought. When I say I'm a conversation curator, it's like, I don't think that I'm right about things that I'm saying or wrong. I think that I have an opinion and I state it in a way that is it is for the purpose of making you think about this topic, whether you agree with me or disagree. You can be vehemently for or against, but I want you to think about it in a much more complex and nuanced way.
I think opening people's minds, especially closed minds, by planting seeds and doing that, it's really important right now. Yep. I agree. Yeah.
I think we're at the beginning of whatever this revolution or change is going to be. And planting the seeds in people's minds is literally, I think, the work, because that's necessary before the inception. It's I feel like we are at the bottom level of you remember the movie Inception, where it's layer, 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 layer.
Right.
We are at that bottom level in this very specific period of time, planting seeds that will come to fruition later, because they're going to go up people's layers of consciousness to where eventually it's oh, why are we doing capitalism still? Like, why is this
Right.
our system of like
Part of me has
finance?
always felt like I'm living in an ancient time, even though it's modern to me. I always have felt since I was a kid like this seems archaic to me. That's
It
why,
is.
yeah.
And when you I, I made this video where I said, like, the beauty of existing in this time right now is that this conversation that you and I have is going to exist forever. It's
Hmm.
literally going to exist forever on
Yeah.
somebody's server, somebody's something, whether it's in a lost memory stick somewhere because someone saved it because they thought you were interesting, and it's going to exist somewhere for fucking ever. And when again you understand the concept of forever, it doesn't matter when you are existing in time, it's ancient. Because like, I mean, granted, the planet gets destroyed or some, whatever, but under our understanding of when the sun would actually die is a long time from now. And so, like, we are going to be here doing this for a long time. And it is like, when you start to realize time is not linear and you feel time, everything existing everywhere all at once, the feeling is, I am in this really old part of things, and like in the future that I already conceptually kind of understand exists, even though that future may be 100,000,000 years from now.
Hmm.
I recognize that I am so far back. I am closer to the beginning. I'm closer to Jesus's story and the pyramids and all of the,
Hmm.
ancestors, even the Neanderthal, than I am to like some of these future iterations of humanity.
Right. Because technically you're there too already.
Yeah,
Yeah.
literally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Literally. Yeah. So going back to like neurodivergent stuff, for the people who are neurodivergent, why should neurodivergent people stop apologizing?
Because I think that I say that neurodivergent people should stop apologizing because I recognize that we over apologize. Because society, again, has made us feel um, almost like an inconvenience or an abnormality in a way where I don't think neurodivergents have been given space to exist the way that we naturally exist. And so when we apologize, what I feel like we are doing is giving away our power of existing the way that we exist. We are saying, I'm sorry for operating in this way that is not congruent with the system that you want, or the norms that you want, or the ways that you are. And I feel like, kind of what I said earlier, it does a disservice to the bell curve, right? Like, Michael, you exist the way that you exist with the mindset that you exist in this particular part of the bell curve, and no one else exists there. If Michael starts acting like this part of the bell curve instead of this part of the bell curve, the entire bell curve is off by just, very small amount, because it's just Michael. But now take Michael and multiply that times 99% of humanity. The bell curve is off. And so it's like, when we are apologizing, we are saying it's okay for this bell curve to be off, because we know that we're not existing in the way that we exist, and we're saying, I'm sorry for existing in that way. Let me exist in the way that fits your expectations.
Right. I kind of think about it now as like a exponential kind of graph. Like if you're cutting yourself off and conforming into like the mold of society, which I always say when you conform to the mold, it's kind of turning to rot, right? Like the mold of our society is rotten. And but like I'd say that would completely just cut off your exponential growth every time you conform, right?
Yep. Yeah. And it's either cutting it off, or it is starting it over on a different ramp. Like, instead
Yeah,
of
it's stagnating
continuing
and then
your
yeah.
ramp, you're like, oh, you're going right back to a beginning of a different curve, and now you're maybe building up that one, but it's not your authentic curve. Like, that's more the part that I'm on,
That's
is
a good
like,
metaphor.
yeah, it's not your
Being your own
authentic
authentic curve.
curve.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it's like someone told you, oh, you can't slope at that angle, and you're like, but that's the optimal angle to get to where I'm supposed to be. Michael is supposed to be a world famous podcast host, and this is the angle. But someone's like, no, you should do radio hosting, or you should do content creation. And so then you say, okay, and you stop doing this and you go do that. And sure, you're going to still have a bell curve, but it's going to be so much flatter because you're not moving in your purpose. You're not moving in the place that Michael was specifically put here to do and be in that bell curve. You're being inauthentic, which again is shifting the reality of humanity. Literally, like you, Michael, alone, not operating in your authentic self, shifts humanity towards the worst part of what humanity should be, which is inauthentic.
So you got to be your own mx+b, essentially.
Yeah,
right?
literally.
Yeah, you got to be your own slope.
Perfect. Not just be your own slope, but don't let anyone else define your slope or tell you what your slope should be. Because again, that I think our intuition is the closest thing to God consciousness that we have. So like when we are connected and really operating within the clear parameters of what we're supposed to be and how we're supposed to exist, it's almost like autopilot. Everything feels like flow. It works out. The people who you need to connect with, we find each other. We have it's like I recognize that this conversation is a reflection of me being in absolute flow because I am enjoying the conversation. It is something that I think will move this type of discussion forward. And I've also met someone who I connect with on a level that I don't connect with everyone on. And so that for me is a reflection of if you have doubts, you're doing what you're supposed to do, because if you weren't, you wouldn't meet people like Michael. You wouldn't, everyone sees the clocks and the repeating times and all those things. And I do believe that's real in a completely different type of way. But like this type of synchronicity where it's like all the things going on in everyone's life and you still somehow under the hundreds of millions of people on these apps, you found me and my content and we connected to create this moment. It's a reflection to me of being in alignment with whatever it is that I'm supposed to be or be doing. And I feel like we are mutually in alignment for whatever our bell curve is supposed, or our placement on that bell curve is supposed to be.
I completely agree. And it feels like, I'm sure you've had this experience too, or tell me if you have, that right now we are finding more and more of our people, which for me, I was so isolated. I mean, I've been even recently like so isolated. It's still over this way, like over Zoom and stuff, but like, is that like for you too? Is it mostly digital, but not in person?
Yeah. So I've started to convert some of those digitals into real life because there's a part of me that also recognizes that part of my journey has been literally trusting my physical body and my intuition. And so it's like I can meet someone online and I recognize that like a person can appear to be someone online differently than in person, but my ability to gauge them in person is I trust it almost inherently at this point, or there's a lesson for me to be learned if my gut is wrong. But I have for sure totally different story and everything else, but like my entire life has flipped over and changed in the last 2 years, where my friend circle is different, my job is different, my outlook on life, everything has shifted in a way that has for sure aligned me more with people who are more, I think, in my long-term community because they think the way I do or believe the way I do. And that came from me talking about neurodivergence in a way because it impacts my life so much. And it is one of those, again, someone called it like not a siren call, but something where it's like when you are speaking with your authentic voice, those people who are supposed to find you are going to find you. And that's just the way like the universe works. It's like our voice is vibration. Everything is energy. Energy is vibration. When you release that energy, it goes, and it's just like quantum entanglement. Like you don't have to hear what I'm saying. The fact that I said it is impacting someone somewhere else, and they are already on their mission to find me. And I'm going to say something else that's going to help me even more. And then they're going to see my content and say, I recognize that voice. that person is a part of my tribe. And like, that's how I think
Mm.
this is working. I also believe, to our earlier conversation, that the powers that be that control social media and things, if they knew how important it was for us to find one another, they would shut them all off. Like, I really
Yeah.
believe they'd say, fuck the profits, fuck all the advertising, all those things. If we want to keep the world as it is and the power that we have to shut down social media, because they're finding each other and waking each other up. And even though we're making money off of it, our long-term business model is in serious jeopardy.
That has been one of my questions too, but I think it's because I don't know if you ever looked into Project Looking Glass, where they're using like an advanced, like you said, whatever we're using, they have stuff obviously way advanced, and they're
Yep.
using the artificial intelligence for a long time, and they found a convergence point at a certain point that they can't stop no matter what they do. Timelines, it has to happen, and I think that's what we're going to experience. Like this, I think it's this year. Truly, I've experienced so many synchronicities that it's going to be this year. That's why I kind of trust Chris Bledsoe. I don't trust blindly anyone like you. Like,
Yeah.
there's a lot of liars, grift. So too many. I've even people I once trusted. I'm like, fuck, really, you too?
Yeah.
God damn it. Have been huge letdowns. But his, I don't know if you want to call it prophecy, but what he's been talking about for like 20 years has all started to come true, and it lines up with all the synchronicities and dreams and all this shit. And I think it's real soon, dude.
I don't disagree. I've told people that I believe that before November 2026, whatever.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, but you said October 10th. What is the thing you were talking about? If you're willing to.
I don't want to talk about it in this
Okay.
like type of form. I'm happy to talk about it with you like personally, and then we can figure out a way
Okay.
to talk about it more widely. But it's very similar to like what we've been talking about, of just kind of the awakening. And I
Mm.
think it's a much more specific, and again, conjecture still from my own personal beliefs of how I think the entities that are operating and controlling this world have been doing so. And that date just came out of a lot of like dreams, like understanding in that way. Again, could be completely wrong.
Mm.
I have just felt like, for whatever reason, the way that I've seen that date and the things around it have led me, oh, that has to be what
Mm.
this thing is, or the start of it, or that's going to be the tipping point, or it is something in
Yeah.
that type. Yeah.
Okay. And then also just signs of like how sloppy the elites, I call them parasites, are getting with stuff. I don't think it's because they may be scripting the Book of Revelations to have some new control system or whatever, but I think they're genuinely panicking because we're getting really close to that point.
Yeah.
And maybe they're allowing social media to happen because it doesn't matter anyways at this
I
point.
think there's a lot of, I think a lot of, even to what you were saying earlier, I think Donald Trump is the culmination of a system that recognizes it's no longer in control. And
Mm.
it almost feels like he is a last ditch effort to try and create some control, where it's like, we don't know what to do. Call in the person who says they can do it and has the craziest idea. But it is really like, I think
He's literally shitting his pants at the Oval Office. He's wearing
correct.
diapers, shitting his fucking pants.
And it's why that is going to be the tipping point to the change. It's one of those, I agree with you. I don't think I think it's inevitable, some of the things that are happening. And I
Mm.
think the elites understand that it's inevitable. And I also think that whatever systems of technology they have, that I do truly believe, because predicting the future is nothing more than high levels of pattern recognition, right?
Mm.
So when you really do have quantum computers that can process trillions and trillions of pieces of data, like
Which
your
technically
ability.
that's our brain too,
Yeah,
essentially.
exactly,
Yeah.
literally. And so it's essentially, when you think about that, again, as above so below, it's like, I can predict the future. I worked in financial forecasting enough to where I can see a P&L, and I can predict what will happen from seeing multiple quarters of a P&L. I'm like, a computer is just doing the same thing with way more bandwidth and way more RAM than I'd ever be capable of, and taking in way more inputs and just prognosticating the most likely event. And we see the
Mm.
same thing with sports and stuff, where it's like, oh, this team has a 88% chance to win based on it being 2 minutes left and da 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 da, all those different things. It's like, yeah, quantum computers are no different. So they know that this endpoint is coming. They know they've run every simulation, and it's like the Avengers with, we got one chance, and it's
Right.
probably like that for them. Like they
See, I think they inverted. Yeah, I think they inverted.
Yeah,
Endgame,
that's what
right?
I mean.
You notice
It's
that
only
too?
one
Yeah.
chance.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one chance to keep this world the way it is, except it's not gonna work because the hero is on, like the villain and the hero are flipped in, the conceptual idea. But yeah.
See, it's so interesting. You notice the same pattern. Like I try to tell people, like, what are you talking about? It's inverted. What do you mean it's flipped? Like, yeah.
But it's the saying behind the matrix of even Hollywood, right? It's because it's like you recognize that messaging is counterintuitive to reality, but it's also by design. Like that's not an accident that like our little children and teenagers who don't have the intellectual rigor and understanding of you and I to be able to see below that, they're conceptualizing the reality that is presented in that movie. And so they are getting the inverted version. I think the world is inverted from a power dynamic. So when you talk about the orbs and the divine feminine return, like I feel like the divine feminine is the top of the food chain if there is one, right? Like I think it's actual perfect balance between masculine and feminine that creates balance. But I think because we've had toxic masculine, I hate the term, but like
I agree.
that in that type of way, that there, in order to create balance, there has to be a heaviness of feminine to come in to counteract the world that we've created that has created this imbalance. And so it's, again, to me, again, as above, so below. It's like if you're standing on one leg for a really long time, you're going to have to shift a little bit to get balance. And it's like, yeah, we're going to have to shift to a much higher proportion of women in leadership than we ever thought in order to get back to a world that's, again, the bell curve is balanced. Because right now all the leaders are men, and of course, we have women, but it's even the women who are in positions of leadership are not leading with feminine qualities. They're leading in a masculine way. They're just women because we don't allow the divine feminine energy to even be a part of corporations or be a part of government or whatever else. We still expect everyone to operate in this hyper masculine capitalistic structure. And that's, my belief why it's going to fail is because we're not creating the right balance. We're putting women there, and it's the same, mind trick kind of like, oh, we'll put women in these positions, but then we are only putting women in these positions who will operate in the ways that are no different. And that's the same way I feel about Barack Obama. Like, again, my favorite president for sure, but still, to me, no different than most presidents that has existed. Like I
still has the most drone strikes.
Right.
Didn't
and it's
change,
like, okay, you are a
Yeah.
blackface in a position that has never had a blackface, but you're not operating any differently than your predecessors or anyone who has come since. So, it's the same thing. I feel like when women in positions of leadership right
And
now,
that
it's
masculine
like,
energy still.
I love that you being there, but you're not operating in the ways that I think women are
like
best
when you
suited
think
to
when you
operate.
think of Hillary Clinton, you don't think feminine. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. It's the same thing with Kamala too. And it's like, it's the things that I value most in women are the things that are opposite of men, right? Because it's like the women create the balance for men. So if you're bringing in women, you're not creating balance if you're bringing in masculine leaning women. And not to say either of them are masculine in like a gay way, but just I'm saying the energy that is necessary to operate in the government, corporate America, capitalistic systems is inherently masculine.
Yeah. I'd say it's corrupt masculine. It's not even masculine.
Corrupt masculine. Yes, I agree. I need to be better with that.
I agree. The name taught. I think they have annoying people say terms like toxic masculinity, so it's just no one wants to talk about it because it's fucking annoying, right?
It's the same thing as like I feel like the way the right says woke, and like kind of
right. Real woke is like to be a woke. They ruined it. Yeah, they fucking ruined it.
It's like, why would you not want to be woke? Like, why would you want to be asleep at the wheel? Like, why? But they've demonized it so much, and it's the same thing. But yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I know we've been going a long time. I'll ask, let's see. So how would you advise neurodivergent people stop people pleasing? I like how we go on all this esoteric shit. And then
but it always comes back to it though. And that's why I feel like these kind of conversations are the best, because it literally is. It doesn't matter where we start. It's always going to get back to some esoteric in some sort of way, kind of. But I think that people pleasing is, again, a function of us not living and being authentic. And I think because people pleasing is also a form of insecurity, and it's a form of wanting to fit in. And so you are, to me, people pleasing, and this is something I had to learn on my own as a former people pleaser. It is a real form of insecurity, and it's a real form of like manipulation in a way, because I'm not doing these actions per se because I just want to do them. I'm doing them transactionally. And so it's no different than capitalism, where it's like, oh, I'm inputting this thing and I'm expecting this thing in return, instead of it being like a genuine like thing that I'm doing. And so
that's a good way to frame it for the neurodivergent mind. If you put it where you're doing it in justice, then that'll make you not want to do it. I think that's a good way to frame it. Yeah.
It's really just I think most things that we want to stop just require a level of what's the word?
Self-love.
Yes, but like signal interruption. Like we process things naturally based on our upbringing, our lived experiences, our education, all those different things. When someone describes to you what people pleasing is, and then you have someone who will possibly point out and say, hey, Michael, when you did that thing, that was a form of people pleasing. And you now have a actual understanding of what that is. And like, oh, I did just do that. Oh, that is people pleasing. That conscious understanding of it allows enough service interruption to where the next time you do it, you may still do it. But you're going to think about it. And I think the more that we actually think about it as a concept and an idea, the more disgusted we get with it as a person. It's like, I'm conforming, I'm pretzeling myself and my behaviors and my beliefs and my feelings in order to accommodate another person or another thing that I probably don't even feel that strongly about actually impressing or feeling that way. Because that's the thing most about people pleasing, is that like a large part of it is like you're pleasing and doing it for people you don't even really like or care about, or like aren't important. It's one thing to be a people pleaser to your boss and to like that, but like we become people pleasers to so many people that it becomes so problematic, because you're abandoning yourself consistently, and that self-abandonment is the issue more so than anything else. And that's not even a neurodivergent thing per se. Again, I think neurotypical requires self-abandonment for the whole, because the conceptual idea of it is, this is how we do it. This is what it's supposed to be like. This is how you're supposed to be in order to do this thing. And it's like,
and the social climbing and hierarchies and all that shit. Right.
It's like, what if I can do this thing a different way? Oh no, we don't let you do it that way. So you have to do it this way. And it's like, okay, that is still people pleasing, because I think that Michael's innate way of possibly doing it could be the evolution that we need in that task to become self-sufficient or improve the technology or whatever. But because Michael is pleasing his boss, doing it the way his boss showed him, because his boss has been doing it that way for 15 years, this company goes under because Michael didn't get to innovate in his way that he would have, because he had to please his boss and do it the way his boss.
It sounds so wrong.
Yeah, but it's does it seem far-fetched?
No, I mean, right? Pleasing, like pleasing your
boss. Yeah. I'm just saying, it's so far, it's such a reality that I try to ground it in like, this is the result of us doing that. You know, like rather your goal is profitability is not good for profitability. Rather your goal is self growth and evolution is not good for that. Rather it's community and our interpersonal relationships, it doesn't benefit that. Like it is self abandonment at the greatest scale, but it's not just impacting you, it's impacting your kids, your community, your everyone around you.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, it goes back to that I'm not being authentic and saying, hey, Michael, I have a problem with the way you said that thing to me and I don't like it. And I don't want you to talk to me like that again, which is respectful and direct and tells you, like, hey, I had a problem with that thing. And it allows you to either correct your behavior or for me to feel comfortable. And at least I said something and I stood up for myself and gave myself the space to exist in the way that I
Mm-hmm.
exist. Like those things are really fucking important. And when we abandon them, again, I think it's one of those really small things that impacts infinitely into the future. Because
Mm-hmm.
it's the pebble
Well,
in the
that's the
water.
identity, right?
Yeah.
If you let it go over so many times, you have the identity of a coward, and that
Oh
bleeds over
yeah.
into other stuff, right? So it does take
100.
bravery to, like, that confrontation,
It
especially for
does.
yourself. Like if you don't have the excuse for someone else, like, oh, I love them, so I'm going to do it. Especially for neurodivergent people, at least when I was younger, I would always instinctually defend other people. But when it came to myself, I was like, I can take it, right? I think most of us are kind of like
And
this
it's
because you're
such
empathic and you don't want to
a
hurt
weird
someone. And
thing,
yeah,
isn't it? It's such a weird thing. I told people I was like, I got in more fights growing up that were on behalf of someone else than on behalf of myself. Literally, like I
yeah,
can think of times where someone's taunting me or whatever, and I'm like, I don't care, like whatever. Someone's taunting or doing something to someone else, I'm jumping in the middle as
yeah.
like that person. But it's a real thing, and it's one of those things that I think comes with our natural makeup and our natural wiring that is again a superpower. Like it's a clutch shift on a supercar, but you gotta learn how to control it and drive it and have discernment around it so that you don't misuse it. And so it's
Hmm.
like every other thing, once we learn how to implement these things, oh, it's a superpower now instead of a liability.
Definitely. And yeah, it comes back to like that self love. And I know for myself, I said this on other podcasts, like I heard a song about loving yourself. And I was like, why have I never thought about that before? And I looked in the mirror and I said, I love you. And I felt like, whoa, that's
Yeah.
weird. I don't know. I'm like, but why would that feel weird? And I kept asking the whys. And that's, how you start naturally working on yourself. Just that question of like, why would it feel weird to love myself? Why would it feel weird to, defend myself? And I'm always defending other people. So I think asking those why questions, I mean, when it gets into like the esoteric stuff that we talk about, it can get trippy and it can
Yeah.
affect you negatively sometimes. But at least in the love category, I think asking why, about why am I not treating myself better? Why am I not helping myself? Why do I feel I don't have something of value to bring to the world? Why am I suppressing myself? Those are all the questions that we gotta start facing now moving forward.
Yep. I
Mm.
think that there's a big part of us that has to, like, I have a really deep story that I'll share eventually of, like, I know the actual day. It was July 22nd, 2022, where I literally recognized and realized and came to the intellectual understanding that I did not love myself, or I did not have behaviors that were loving of myself, that I would do for other people things that I would not do for myself, and I would keep commitments to other people that I would not keep to myself. And the understanding of, like, oh, I liked myself. I don't have low self-esteem. I don't think any of those things, but I don't have loving behaviors towards myself because I am people pleasing, and that is self-abandonment at the greatest level. And self-abandonment is an absence of self-love, because you don't abandon things that you love or people
Mhm.
that you love. And for me, it had always been, oh, I'm not going to abandon my friend, my children, my, everyone else. But it's like, oh, I'll abandon myself in a second. I know that I have to do this thing, but I'll put it on the back burner and come help you because you need help, and I'll figure out
Mhm.
my thing later. That's self-abandonment, where I'm putting myself in jeopardy for someone else. And not to say that that's not sometimes the thing to do, but when you do it consistently in the way that I did, it's just a reflection of like, oh, you don't value yourself enough to do what you say you were going to do for yourself. You don't love yourself enough to believe that you deserve to put this time apart for yourself to do XYZ or, whatever. And it was literally the hardest realization I've ever had to truly integrate into myself, because I've never had what I thought was like low self-esteem or even insecurity per se, but it was reflected very much in the ways that I treated myself and how I people pleased and self-abandoned myself in relationship with other people, even though I called that loving behavior towards them. It was really, really trippy to uncover like how unloving that what I thought loving behavior towards other people was unloving towards myself.
Mm-hmm. I'm curious for you, because I remember the same thing with me where when I finally started to heal that, I always had that voice always focused on the past and trauma and stuff like that. And that's what was always keeping me down. And until I forgave, one of the key moments where it shifted in my life was, the people that are always supposed to take care of you and love you, and they weren't the best people in my life. And they were actively hurting me. And I forgave them at a time that they were actively hurting me. And as soon as I forgave them, that made it in my control, right? I actually did something, even though it's one of those paradoxes. I forgave someone while they're screaming at me in my face, who, supposed to love you and take care of you. And I forgave them, and that made them even angrier. And but I felt a wall just be knocked down, and they didn't control me anymore. And then I went upstairs. Even though I'm handicapped, I was forced to crawl up 2 flights of stairs. And I called the other person who's supposed to take care of you, and I forgave them on the phone too. And then after that, my entire life was like a quantum leap. Like first time I had a quantum leap, and I was able to start living independently, and a lot of things shifted in my life. And that's when I really started doing the self-love, was like Jesus talked about, through forgiveness. And, Jesus, by the way, too, like he couldn't just help everyone right away. He went through a process and only, was able to do all the things he started to do at like 30 to 33. Yep. So you got to fill your cup first, love yourself first, and then you can help everyone else. But if you don't understand yourself, you don't love yourself fully, you can't really truly reflect to other people, because you're looking for something in return.
Yep.
So
every time. And it's one of those, like, I realize like it's such a simple concept, right? Like it really is basic and simple, because it's like, how can you love someone else when you don't love yourself? Right? Like how it's literally, I feel like, impossible. You can care for someone else, you can sacrifice for someone else, you can do for someone else, you can do all those things, but that's not love if you don't have self-love with it, because that absence of self-love, like, it, to me, literally, like,
you have nothing to sacrifice for, right? If you don't love yourself, you can't sacrifice for someone else.
Correct.
Yeah.
And it's like you're just giving away something in expectation of getting something back, and not giving from a place of actual love. Mm-hmm. And like, you can't give from that place of love if you don't love yourself, because loving yourself is what refills your cup, or protects you from overgiving, or protects you from going too far out of your way to at the cost of self-abandonment.
Right. And unless you love yourself fully, you're not living from an abundance mindset. You're living in scarcity and survival.
Absolutely.
Right. And so you don't really have a lot to give, because you yourself, you don't have any more to give, and eventually you'll run out. So I realized that with myself. So when I started to get on my own, to break my own programming and stuff, I started giving away money to people. I just started just random strangers. I go and buy flowers, and I still do it. I go at least once a week, and I go around and I pass out roses to people, and I tell them they're worthy of everything their heart desires. And I try and do that as much as I can, just to remind myself, as well as, I want to embody the possibility of positivity, and show that random acts of kindness and random acts of good things can happen too, instead of all random bad shit, because I know what that shit's like. But also, just for myself, for a selfish reason, I'm reminding myself, like, hey, there will always be more. I'm not going to die right now because I gave out, $15 worth of roses to people or something. Like, I can do this. Is something I can do, and it helps my community. So, and I've seen it have a real effect. For Christmas, I dressed up as Santa and I gave out presents. And people are like, "Oh, the city's paying you." Like, no, I bought these presents and I'm giving them out to you. Yeah.
It's one of those things like you realize like I think I may have said it even earlier on here. Everything is energy. Everything is an energy transfer. So I look at even these podcasts, it's an energy transfer of ideas. I have no idea what you're going to say to me that is going to percolate somewhere down the line that could literally change my life. But the same way that we look at the transfer of money and the transfer of goodwill and the transfer of gestures, it's all energy. And it's like
Mm-hmm.
I really do understand the laws of the universe in a way of like the energy that you put out, you do get back, and you do attract that. So the more generous you are, the more empathetic you are, the more all of those things, the more that finds you, and the more like that is the life that comes back to you. It's
Mm-hmm.
like
It's the
I've
only
realized,
real currency is energy. That's the
yeah,
only real thing.
and it's the
Yeah.
only one that's real. And it's
Yeah.
why I keep telling people, I'm like, and I don't say this in any type of like, I think there's a lot of people who do the fake humility type of thing. I don't do that. Like I don't, but I really am baffled sometimes at my social media growth because I'm like, I'm just doing what like this is not what I expected or by design to like this per se. I love it. I'm not against it. But it made me realize how much more, again, people are looking for community and connection, and like this surreal need for us to just kind of, I think there's again just that unique period of time where everyone feels all of the things happening. And so it's like almost like a latent superpower that a lot of people have. And it's like they're waking up to it because of all of the abnormal shit happening with the elites and with government and with
Mm-hmm.
world wars, and not world wars, but possibly world wars.
Maybe.
But yeah, wars like and genocides and things like that. And it's like, oh, that's why I can't feel okay about just watching the Macy's Day Christmas parade. Like everything's
Mm-hmm.
not okay, like, and
Mm-hmm.
it's a very human thing to feel, and a very anti-capitalism, anti-American thing to talk about because it goes against the system, you know,
Well, the system is inherently anti-connection,
for sure. Yeah,
right? So
yeah,
you doing what you're doing is, like you said, that connection is the only true energy, and people are looking
yeah,
for truth right now. And like we were talking about earlier, there's a lot of controlled opposition. In my opinion, I'll say it. Nick
agreed.
Fuentes, Candace Owens. I
Yep.
wanted to like Candace, but no, there's no way. I think they're
So here,
all.
we don't have to get on Candace, but like I am,
I mean, Nick Fuentes is promoting pedophilia right now. Like literally,
yeah, I'm not
I don't know if you
Nick
saw that
is,
shit. Like he's.
yeah, I'm not
But I'm
Candace
saying
though.
like you're authentic though. People can tell now you're real. You're not, and you're
Yeah,
not really trying to sell shit. You're not doing what Nick's doing. Like Nick, you can tell he got the
pushing an
call.
agenda.
He has an obvious agenda. They all do.
Yeah,
And people are looking just for people, no bullshit. Like I can
yeah,
just sense it. I'm so happy I saw people turn on Nick.
yeah,
I'm sure people believed him or liked what he had to say for different parts. They weren't all in on him. You may like part of what he said because they tell partial truths. That's why they're
yeah.
controlled
That
opposition. But you can tell when the bullshit starts seeping in, and you're like, oh, it's so easy to tell now. And I'm just so grateful to see people turn on him like that. Realize,
yeah.
oh, you got the call. You got all his comments. You got the call. He's flipping. We're done. And I'm like, thank God. Thank God, finally. People are looking for no bullshit, no
Yeah,
lying, no
I think it's
manipulation, and
also,
you're just genuine.
I think it's why Trump was able to get elected too. It's like at the end of the day, however you feel about him, like he's full of shit, but he's not full of shit. Like, you know what I mean? Like he's full of shit, but like
he was not full of shit until he was full of shit.
Until he was
right?
full of shit, right?
Yeah.
But he was saying all the things that like people want to hear, like the things that are just like all bullshit aside.
He's a fucking antichrist. He's literally,
and it's literally that energy, because it's like, you're not saying like, yeah, our trade deficits are outrageous. The jobs that have been shipped overseas are outrageous. The ways that we've been cheated by other companies and made these unilateral is outrageous. But unless you are going to actually fix them or actually do things to try and correct them, you messaging that is just a Trojan horse into office so that you can further manipulate and lie to people, because you said, I'm going to fix, and you're not fixing shit. But you weren't wrong in the messaging that you were using, because that's why you won.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's why you won.
I told a story on the last podcast, but when I turned 18, Trump was just starting to run in 2016. And I always asked my grandfather when I was younger, like, to learn about politics, why do people say politicians are corrupt? President's supposed to be good, right? And he told me, like, oh, they owe money to raise for their fundraisers, for their campaigns, and then they owe the favors once I get in. And I'm like, oh, okay, so why isn't someone who's like a billionaire run with their own money say no one owns me and actually do the right thing? And he's like, it's a good idea, someone should. And the first time I was able to vote as a 18-year-old kid, he was running. I'm like, this is exactly what I was talking about. Looking back, I was like, did I manifest this reality? Did I shift into the bad reality? I don't know, but
no, but it's one of those things. Like, I feel like I don't fault people who were Trump supporters, because I really do understand both sides. And it's one of those, I don't agree with both sides. I think that there, especially in the second election, there were a lot of things that you would have had to turn a blind eye to say, I'm going to vote for him. In full transparency, I didn't vote for him or Kamala Harris. I felt like, for me, like, there is a lesser of two evils, and that has been, for me, the story of my voting history in my life has been, oh, it's the lesser of two evils. And I said selection was the one where I was like, oh, the lesser of two evils is too evil for me, because at the end of the day, I don't give a fuck what anyone says. The Biden administration with Kamala and Joe Biden committed genocide, just like this administration is, just like the country of Israel. Like, it's, I don't care. Like, no one's like, I'm not going to lesser of two evils when that is the one that you're telling me to choose, because now I'm saying I still believe in this system that I don't believe in.
Exactly.
I don't believe that it's fixable. I don't believe that it can be redeemed in the ways that I used to believe. So therefore, I'm not going to do the lesser of two evils. And
you don't want to entangle your energy into that system, right? I did the same thing. I didn't vote. So.
Literally since the election, like, I have not been as politically pulled into the minutia of the shit. And I was just like, it has to be, again, an energetic piece, because I didn't bet on either of them winning. And so I don't have a dog in the fight. Literally, I can just call bullshit on both of them, because I think that's what us should be doing right now.
Yeah, I'm just done with it. I think most people are just like done with it. There's no redeeming those. I mean, they're so old too. Like, what are we talking about? It's a fucking retirement home. We all know it. And these evil narcissistic parasites aren't given up power. And unless some spiritual force that we talked about comes and intervenes and does it, it's going to be up to us to take this shit back. Whether it's, I mean, it's the 250th anniversary soon.
I just saw a text message that I missed 15 minutes ago.
Okay, you want to end it? Yeah, it's over.
Yeah, I mean, I could take like one more. Or
no. Like, that's about it. So, thank you everyone for watching. Thank you, Phil, for joining me. I think we had a great conversation. Again, I always aim for an hour, and we're at 2 hours and 40 minutes about. So,
I think anytime you get two neurodivergent people having conversations that are open-ended, you're going to go longer than you expect, just because the conversation typically. Again, we don't, I said it in some of my content, we don't speak linear, we speak, zigzag spider web, but because all of these things are connected. And so, thanks for having me, and definitely thanks for the invitation. I really enjoyed the conversation with you and would love to do it again. So yeah, whenever you're ready, let's do it again.
Definitely, of course, Phil. If you ever want to talk, or you're doing a podcast or something, I'd be happy to come on and talk more or anything.
Absolutely.
Of course,
guest on Light Exchange and putting it YouTube everywhere else also in March. That's
Nice.
my.
If you need help or advice, just ask me and I'll help you.
I will.
Of course.
All right.
Anything you want to promote?
No, not at the moment, but when I do, I'll definitely hit you up and let you know. But as you share this, I will share it also because I thought it was a great conversation and it's gonna make some great clips also.
Cool. Thank you so much, Phil. And everyone, please subscribe to the channel and give it a like and all the algorithm stuff. As well, if you want to check out my Substack where I write some of my pieces that I've been talking about. It's Reading My Writing with Michael the Chairman. And yeah, it's up there. Thanks again, everyone. And I hope you have a fantastic, safe day and week and year and whatever we're going into. I hope the orbs protect us all. So,
Thanks, buddy.
All right. See you guys in the next episode. Bye.